Oh man, we're back once again from a tremendous day yesterday as we had the Ghanaian King in the house with Dean Oki. But this is Terry Riggs, Mr. Riggs, UK tour guide to the rest of the world. And now, today, we're going to be dealing with another aspect, another deep topic, another information. But before we can even do that, I introduce my co-host.
Also, what's good, people? What's good? Mr. Black Ice Richie in the house. Big up to all joining us in the chat room. It's going to be another good show. We got a family member on today, a very astute person. Yeah, dropping that knowledge, bringing that realness, showing black excellence. So strap yourselves in, get ready for a nice presentation and a good chat. And as I said, always like, share, subscribe, donate, people. Support the channel so we can keep bringing this content out to you, yeah? So without further ado, let's get into it. Introduce yourself and let's do this.
Okay. But before we do this, today's our special day in our honor. From Black Eyes TV, we have to honor people of our greats, our ancestors, our families, and whatsoever. So in the deepest notion, as we have our honorable Ssali, and coming from our honorable ancestor, Mr. Ssali himself, but fortunately, in a certain circumstances of what the pandemic that we're going through, we want to have just a little bit of a minute silence for Steve's mother, Margaret Ssali. So please, people, I want you to be able to contribute to this just for 1 minute of silence. Thank you. Oh man, we're back. We're here. We're live. We've got the man on the side, the man himself. I want you to introduce who you are, where you come from, and everything that people need to know. And we want to, give our condolence once again to Mum Margaret Ssali. So introduce yourself, my brother.
Yes, greetings, beloved. I just want to first of all thank Black Eye TV for creating the space where we can actually come together and share information, awareness. And before I go any further, I just want to thank you for creating the platform and also organizing the space. And I also want to thank you for also honoring my mother, because she's a very important person in my life, just like any other mother is to every human being on the planet. We come through the mother energy, the mother essence. And we want to give thanks to my mother, Margaret Ssali. She's recently passed away, for those who may not know, on the 7th of April. She was 81 years old. And she was somebody who was very strong, moving about, doing everything she could to really carry on, just like an elder in the family. Very strong center, very strong pillar in our family. And also supported my great and beloved father, who's also passed on to the ancestors, Professor Ssali. She was like a rock for Professor Ssali doing his research, and was able to provide the grounding and the sense of direction in terms of really the research he undertook. So just wanted to spend some time really, first of all, to really also do a little bit of, you can join me, I've got a little live plant here, and we just want to join us and put a little bit of libation, you know what I mean, to those who've gone before us. And I know you can't see this, but I hope I don't put it in my computer.
You can see.
That is it. There's a little bit of just to remember all our great ancestors who've gone, and to remember them, that they are with us through the essence of life. And also we've lost also a great and illustrious teacher in our community, in our nation, Dr. Africa. We want to remember him as well. We want to remember the great and wonderful Douglas, who has also left us, Douglas of SLR, who was part of Find Your Voice. We recently celebrated his passing. And we also want to rise up and celebrate those who have also lost any form of family member during this time. We are losing many people who really are very close to us in different ways. Some are aunties, uncles, nieces, nephews. And we have to remember that sometimes we look at these passings as untimely, but always know that there is a divine plan, a divine essence, the Most High, the creator of whole, who put everything into being, who governs the whole of nature and the whole of the universe. So when the time for a soul to cross over has reached, we have to remember that this is something that we have no decision in, and we have to allow whatever has happened to take space. So I'm going to be in a space also, just through remembrance. I'm going to use this. I don't know if you can see, this is a little singing bowl, just to really remind us of those who've gone, because many times they have gone on to be another world, but we also remind ourselves that they are also part of what we call the essence of life. And today, as we speak about the essence of wholeness, the essence of truth, the health truth is what I call it, we have to remember that there have been many health warriors along the way. And we want to remind ourselves of what we call the great Imhotep, who was the father of medicine. He said, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Today, we're realizing we're living in a very, very, what I call uncertain times. We're living in unprecedented times. We're living in times of great change. At the same time, we have to make sense of sometimes what people sometimes call nonsense. And we are seeing a lot of our family members challenged in so many different ways. And many times we are kind of, in a way, not able to make an idea of why things are happening the way they're happening, because it was so sudden. And I can tell you, losing a family member, especially a parent, is very challenging. Sometimes you lose your focus, you lose your sense of self. I lost my sense of self, and I lost my sense. I said to myself, wow, I was really doing a lot of this for mom as well. So it was like, what do you do? I know she wanted me to carry on, just like dad wants me to carry on, and to raise a flag of health and wellness, and to continue to really run the Mariandina Research Foundation along with the family, to really begin to bring about a sense of what we call growth and empowerment. For those of you who have not really heard about Professor Ssali, just wanted to start by really sharing with you the history of who he is and what he was all about, because many times when we hear of Professor Ssali, we might not really look at this as a way of really saying to ourselves, okay, what did this man stand for? What was he doing in the midst of everything. But we also realize in everything, he was somebody who actually created so much that we actually see today in terms of literally health and well-being and understanding. And he was a man who was born in Uganda, and he was born at a time where he had to find what we call, in the early days, I mean, Uganda is a place where you could say is the Great Lakes region in Central Africa. And it has the largest lake, freshwater lake, which is originally called Lake Nalubale, which is now termed as Lake Victoria. But the original name for that lake was Lake Nalubale. That's what our ancestors gave the name of that lake. They called it Lake Nalubale, which was the lake of the gods. And literally, being the largest freshwater lake in Africa, this is where we come from. This is where the source of humanity has emerged from the Great Lakes region. That is where they found the oldest of bones that they've termed Lucy in that Great Lakes region. So we are also going back to the root of understanding that there is a heritage of healing. There is a legacy of healing that our great African ancestors have laid down as a foundation. There is also a space where we can begin the process of really going back to what we call our cultural methods of healing, our traditional healers who have left great wisdom and great knowledge along what we call the path of wellness and well-being. Today, we're also seeing that a lot of us are being moved into a space of what we call treating ourselves in a space where we can actually just really sometimes forget that those great ones who have left a lot of information, they have also gone in a space to really help us to understand that this journey is really one where we can actually begin to look at some of the things that actually Professor Ssali did, were actually to look into the annals of wellness to find out why is it that people are falling sick? Why is it that today we're in a space where things are where they are? But we're here to really also look at so many things. But he was from a village called Meru. That's where we are actually our ancestors come from. It's in Western Uganda. And at this particular time, we are having what we call a season where obviously we are in a lockdown season, but I just wanted to share something with you about who he was and what he was about. If you can just, I'm just going to do what I call a screen share as we can look at this. Screen here. That is literally going to help us to look at what he is about. I don't know if you can see that, Terry.
Yeah, it will pop up when you press screen share on the bottom.
Okay.
Can you see it on the bottom?
Okay.
Screen share on the platform.
On the platform, okay.
It should be next to the camera, the microphone settings, and all of that at the bottom.
Okay, I've seen that, and please share.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it will tell you what screen to choose.
Okay. Share your screen, entire screen, application window. Okay, I've got that. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to give you an understanding of who this great man was. I don't know, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Professor Ssali, as you know, was a great man who actually thought and lived by his word in terms of looking for solutions. He realized very early on that there was a major challenge that African people were facing. And this was a challenge to really begin to really expand on what we call our healthcare. And this began where we have to look at, first of all, that he was an ear, nose, and throat consultant, a researcher and inventor of the Mariandina nutritional range. And he crossed over in 2004, was born in 1930. But also, these are some of the things he was able to actually achieve. He was actually born in a village called Meru in Masaka, and this was in Uganda on the 3rd of September in 1930. And he actually was a fellow of the Royal Colleges of Surgeons. Before he did research in what called conditions called atrophic rhinitis, rhinoscleroma, as well as laryngotracheal bronchitis. there were no known treatments for this particular condition. He actually standardized how these treatments are being used all over the world. And in every hospital, they were using his treatments. Today, after that research, there was a condition called HIV/AIDS, which was destroying thousands and thousands of lives in sub-Saharan Africa. And as we know, back in the time, we were actually in Uganda, for example, there were mass graves. And sometimes we would find that people were losing their melanin, people would become sick, they would become emaciated, they would have start vomiting, they would have diarrhea, they would have all kinds of challenges called opportunistic infections. And at that time, Professor Ssali was working in Riyadh Hospital in Saudi Arabia. And when he heard about this condition, he decided to put his background in research to work and to look at how we could solve what we call the pandemic that was there at the time. Just like today we have a pandemic and we're all facing what we call a period of lockdown. But even at that time, in 1986, there was what we call a major condition that was actually in its early stages. And even up to date, 80% of the world's cases are found in sub-Saharan Africa. What he found is that if he could actually combine a range of nutrients, and these are nutrients that actually he realized very early on that the nutrition was going to be the key to actually healing and restoring the body's capacity to heal itself. And in the early days in 1988, when he began his research, he realized that a lot of what was going on is that the pharmaceutical companies had actually spent a lot of money trying to actually look for a cure for HIV/AIDS, but nobody was coming up with anything. So at that time, he said there must be a nutritional solution. So he went about doing research and finding out what nutrients would combine with which nutrients to actually enable to optimize the immune system. Today, we know that the immune system is the #1 healing force in the body. And today, I say why we started with Mariandina, because this invention called Mariandina has got a huge track record. It has been in existence since 1988 when the research began. It began as in liquid form. Now, Professor Ssali decided to actually take it to the next level. He produced his first component called Mariandina A, which contains all those nutrients. Selenium, which we can see protects the body from cancer. Zinc, which is the #1 immune boosting nutrient. Vitamin C, which you know is very important for collagen formation. Vitamin E, for protecting cell membranes. B6, magnesium, iodine, copper, chromium, folic acid, quercetin, vitamin A. All these are actually just components that Professor Ssali had to bring together to really begin to optimize the capacity of the body to heal itself. Today, what we're finding that the #1 challenge that the body faces today, in fact, across every lips of every doctor, is now look after your immune system. Yet Professor Ssali, back in 1988, was able to bring together these nutrients, which are now at the forefront of really transforming lives, which he has been able to treat over 18,000 patients with an 80% success rate. Now, he also, after realizing that HIV/AIDS affected those with lowered immune systems by bringing about opportunistic infections, he then produced Mariandina B. Now, in the B, he wanted to actually improve energy levels. He wanted to improve circulation. He wanted to balance hormones. But also, most importantly, he wanted to make sure that people's quality of what we call hormone balance was in position, because he realized that a lot of the patients who he was treating in the early days also came with a multiple range of issues. They came with other issues like diabetes, high blood pressure, lupus. So he had to find a way of really combining a new set of nutrients that were all tailored to actually work towards doing those things, improving energy, circulation, and balancing hormones. And these are the nutrients that actually are in Mariandina B. You've got alfalfa in there, which is now known as the father of all plants, because every known vitamin is in there. It treats digestive disorders and water retention. You've got bee pollen in there. You've got beta carotene. You've got cayenne pepper, coenzyme Q10, echinacea, garlic, ginkgo biloba, colonet, Siberian ginseng, golden seal, gotu kola, guarana, hawthorn, licorice, yellow dog. All these are great at improving the body's capacity in terms of producing energy. Now, he also found that some of these patients were dying from a condition called Kaposi sarcoma. This is a cancer that appears in what we call AIDS patients. And again, because of lowered immune systems, and what we call this was like an infectious form of cancer. And he formulated Mariandina J as his #1 anti-cancer, antiviral nutritional supplement. And he put all these nutrients in there, from golden seal, horsetail, coltsfoot, echinacea, devil's claw, dandelion, cowslip, comfrey, astragalus, bedstraw, black cohosh, and many more in there to really begin the process of detoxifying the body and cleansing the body. But what he wanted to do at this stage is also stop the spread of this, what we call aggressive cancer, which was called Kaposi sarcoma. Now, in that time, there was no known treatment for Kaposi sarcoma, and this treatment was actually successfully treating patients of Kaposi sarcoma. At that time, there was also what we call news reporters that came from had come to Uganda to film a war in northern Uganda, and they had actually been heard of the professor who was actually treating many patients along the way, and they went to film some of the patients in his clinic in Kampala. And when they got there, they found 12 patients. Some of them were being carried on stretcher, some of them were being carried in unconscious, and they were actually able to actually leave those patients after the first filming and go up to northern Uganda, and said they would come back after 10 days. Now, when they came back, out of the 12 patients, only 2 were remaining. And even the 2 that were remaining did not recognize them because they've been brought in a coma and unconscious. So they showed this on CNN in 1995, and that is where Professor Ssali's work became worldwide in terms of its exposure. Now, today, what we see is that he also realized that children in Uganda at that time were also coming down with HIV/AIDS. And he also wondered, why was this the case? Young children, they weren't sexually active. How would they be able to get HIV/AIDS? And so he developed something called a Mariandina syrup. And in this particular syrup, he put a special tonic in there that nourishes the body and boosts vitality for children. So he put zinc, vitamin C, vitamin B12, vitamin B6, all the vitamins in there to really nourish children's immune systems and uplift them in terms of their health and well-being. And in there, you find a lot of nutrients that really help children with all kinds of things like calcium, which is good for bones and teeth. You also have folic acid in there, which is good for normal cell replication. Ginkgo biloba is good for memory. Iodine, again, very important for thyroid. Also iron for fatigue. And the sarsaparilla is probably very important also for children with eczema and psoriasis. And also, you put vitamin B1, B2, and B3. Now, what is most important here is really the fact that a lot of what he put in Mariandina syrup is now showing amazing results, even in Ghana today, where our product is also very popular. There was a case where in Ghana, children were being born with a hole in the heart. And this is a major problem at the moment in Ghana. There's an entire sector of mothers who are having children with hole in the heart. And when we gave 2 of those two children a trial run on Mariandina syrup, the Mariandina syrup was able to close the hole in the heart. And this is one thing that baffled doctors in Ghana, especially the hospital where they were doing the tests. And they're doing further tests to see how they can utilize the Mariandina syrup to help more children who've got hole in the heart, because this is becoming a big case in Ghana at this moment in time. Now, we also realize that one of the things that we know in every day is that our body is always rebuilding itself. Okay, you have new DNA every 2 months. Your skin is rebuilding itself every month, and your liver is rebuilding itself every 6 weeks, and your stomach lining every 5 days. Your brain is new every year. Your blood is rebuilt every 4 months, and your skeleton every 3 months. Now, what we always realize is that not only we know that Imhotep said to us, we are what we eat, but we also got to remember, as always, is that everything comes down to one thing. What exactly can we do at this stage to make ourselves better in terms of really what we're talking about, that subject matter, which is the health truth. Now, one of the things we're saying today is that if we are going to begin to expand on that health truth, we have to go back to the root. We have to go back to the source. We have to go back to what I would call the origin. The origin begins with us looking at what our great forefathers left us, because it was a great Imhotep who said to us, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Today, our food has become a cocktail of chemicals, and also our medicine has also very quickly become a cocktail of chemicals. So we're seeing a major campaign that is now bent on what we call trying to help us to journey through what are called times where we call times of uncertainty, times of unprecedented experiences where we're facing a complete lockdown. What I wanted to share with you is Professor Ssali looked down the tunnel of time. He saw that we were going to be facing, especially people of African origin, something that was going to challenge the very fabric of our existence, something that was going to challenge the very essence of who we are. And today, what we're seeing is that we are living in a time where those who are able to see the truth are able to say to themselves, okay, fine, I know what's going on, but this is what is happening. So Professor Ssali's work was all about going into different areas to raise awareness. And today he did that in such a way that he traveled to Qatar in the Middle East, where he was the leading doctor talking about healing diabetes using nutrition, and also expressing himself in such a way that he was able to appear in the Peninsula newspaper in Qatar in the Middle East. He also went to America, where he was actually taken on an 8-city tour across America. I was with him at the time. We were in Qatar together. We also spent time in America going across different cities, which was sponsored by a company called Marta, that enabled us to actually expose the Mariandina products to a range of people across from Philadelphia to LA. And we were able to actually share a lot of information as we went along, and also meet a lot of contacts that we actually still keep in touch today. And also from there, he also went to Ghana over 7 times, where he was able to share his work. Now, this is some of the work that he was doing in Ghana, and he was able to give a speech to share with fellow Ghanaians, fellow African members there, that this time we have to do it for ourselves. The medicine that you see that I've invented in Uganda can also help you here in Ghana. So he was telling people that we have now found the solution that I've tried and tested, and it works. And he went to Ghana to share that message, and he was invited by the Gentiles Revival's ministry there. But as you know, with this mission, we're sometimes faced with a situation where one man cannot do everything. And so he called a gathering of all the journalists to come together to share with them how we can actually work towards healing ourselves using nutrition. And that is why he was able to work with different government institutions in Ghana, from the Ngugi Institute, as well as many other, from Takoradi and many other places in Ghana, where he traveled to share his message of wisdom and healing. Now, why do we start here? And why do we begin here? Because every tree has its root, and this is our root as the Mariandina Research Foundation. This is where we came from. This is who built the original cornerstone that we are actually standing on today as myself, Stephen Ssali. And it is him who has given us what we call the essence of what I would call the template, where we are able to see a track record of healing over 30 years that has been presented in patients who sometimes were actually in this particular condition. As you can see there, they were losing their melanin, having what they call constant diarrhea. They were in a situation where they could hardly cope with what we call challenges they were facing at the time. And yet he was able to actually provide them with the nutrition and the nutrients that we saw earlier on to restore balance and to repair their melanin, and also bring them back to a state where, after having all these conditions like anemia, loss of weight, appetite, loss of weight, severe fungal infections, coughing for periods of 6 months, again, was able to actually apply Mariandina A, B, and J alongside other treatments. And this, again, after a period of time, this patient started to improve. And this is the patient after taking Mariandina to boost the immunity. And they were able to go back home after restoring the melanin and also creating a sense of well-being. Now, Professor has also sent a lot of his work, his nutritional supplements to around the world, to people in Suriname, where people in Suriname were able to take the product and find benefits around it, and also find a way of helping themselves. And this is somebody who said, I took Mariandina to Suriname from Holland to give a mother and her child who were in hospital. The child was 3 years old and could not play, just lying in bed each day. We gave the children Mariandina syrup. Within a week, the child was sitting up, and after 2 weeks was playing in the hospital. And we gave the mother Mariandina to help boost immunity, and they were both able to go home after a month. This was from distributed in Holland, but connected in Suriname. This is from Malawi. So Malawi is also another country that has also embraced Mariandina. And here was another testimony from somebody in Malawi, where they said a few people who tried Mariandina are coming with welcome and positive feedback. One of them was my uncle, who we thought we were going to lose. After a few months ago, before he tried Mariandina, his health was deteriorating due to diabetes. The legs were swollen, he even stopped wearing shoes, and he was going blind and having terrible headaches. In the later stages, he started going unconscious 2 to 3 times a week. After he tried Mariandina, the results were unspeakable, and he's never lost sleep since. So what we have is a range of testimonies, even going back into Botswana and many other areas. The Mariandina has helped so many people, even here in the UK and in the Americas, and continues to do so. What we are really looking at here is that Professor's work has been a journey. It has been a journey to really reach out to actually provide nutrition, even to young children who sometimes one would wonder, how could such a young child develop full-blown AIDS? But these were cases in Uganda where children were actually having all the symptoms of full-blown AIDS, and this was what Professor Ssali realized, that this had been linked to what we call a vaccination campaign that was taking place in Uganda at the time. And we know that today the London Times in 1987 reported that the WHO campaign that actually took place in sub-Saharan Africa led to the explosion of HIV/AIDS across the region. And today that sub-Saharan Africa still carries what we call the highest cases of HIV/AIDS. These are some HIV/AIDS patients. Sometimes we've never seen patients like this before, but what we're realizing today that we are in a state where everything that we're doing, we want to really begin the process of reminding ourselves that this journey begins with us taking a moment to really recognize that everything that we're doing at any moment in time is also about taking time to realize that we have the solutions for ourselves to work with, and we can begin the journey by taking a step into looking at why things are the way they are. The reason why I started like that is to really look at what we call our subject matter today, which is really the fact that the health truth. Now, when we talk about the health truth, what we also want to remember and look at is that everything starts with you beginning to find your truth, because we are all here on this planet and we are all creating our reality in one form or the other. One of the things that is most important at this stage is to realize that the journey began back in the spiritual world, and we are here as spirits having a human experience. But when we're talking about the health truth, we want to really also begin by really looking at holistic health. What is holistic health? What does holistic health mean to you? Well, in most cases, what we already want to apply is that holistic health is about the mind, the body, the spirit, and literally wellness in all these areas: physical wellness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, and spiritual wellness. Now, we might say, well, everything we want to look at is remind ourselves that every one of us strives to feel good. That is the normal balance that the body really expands and moves into. So you find that when we hear of things saying, Imhotep saying, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food, we realize that in today's world, as I said earlier on, the awareness that food is actually at the heart of really nourishing our physical body. But just like we nourish our physical body, we need to nourish our mental body with positive thoughts, with positive intentions, with positive vibrations. And at the same time, we know that mental illness or mental dis-ease can also result from what we call imbalances that can lead to depression, that can lead to anxiety, that can lead to post-traumatic stress syndrome, that can lead to schizophrenia, many conditions that actually challenge us mentally. And sometimes people feel just low within themselves. And these are things that sometimes we're seeing that a large number of people of African origin actually are in mental homes at the moment. And we have to question ourselves, what is it that is creating this disproportionate exposure to this, to us being having a high proportion of mental help patients in the institution. So we have to look into these and look at the environment. Second of all, we want to also know that we are all a product of our environment. And what does that mean? Is that we have been molded by our environment. Each one of us is literally in a space where we can actually begin to remember that between the ages of 0 to 7 is called the formative years. And in those formative years, that is when every one of us is actually formed. That is when our character, our personality, our sense of self, our self-image is actually formed in that particular period of time. And we are realizing today that 95% of your world is actually drawn from the subconscious. What do I mean by that? Is that your entire life is actually run from your subconscious mind. And at age 7, your subconscious mind closes. And what does that mean for you? And it means that at some level, there's certain patterns, certain blocks, certain imprints, certain aspects of what we call beliefs that actually can actually also cause ill health and also cause imbalances in the body. So we moves us on to the area of emotional health. Today, emotional health is such key. More and more people are understanding the power of emotional well-being, the power of emotional clarity, the power of really understanding what it means to feel good, because the Creator has made our physical bodies in such a way that in every moment we are feeling something. We are connecting to our environment through the way we feel, and we connect to other people through the way we feel. So we're learning how to really harmonize ourselves with our environment, but also to look at ways of really understanding that we are emotional beings, and also we require that sense of wholeness and wellness in our emotional centers. And many times what we find is that through patterns or imbalances, because we all are creatures of habit. For example, we are realizing today that people who dwell in states of fear and worry actually get problems with their kidneys. People who dwell in states of what we call low self-worth or low self-esteem get problems with their spleen. People who are in a state of continuous anger all the time are going to have what they call liver problems. People who are in a state of grief and loss all the time, grieving for the whole year, grieving for 2 years, it means that they are going to end up with what we call lung problems. Why? Because at the same time, what I'm connecting with you is that everything in the emotional body, which we cannot see with our physical eyes, is directly connected to our physical body. So there is no way one begins, another ends. They're all interfaced, interconnected. What we're realizing that cancer, which is a condition that is now challenging many people around the world because of, again, which we'll go into a bit later on, is the environment we're in has become toxic. And it has become toxic, even the fact that we have to now cover our mouth just to move around. We have to literally wash our hands every time, and all these. It makes us makes our environment literally in a way where we cannot actually be comfortable with it. So we are seeing that resentment, lack of forgiveness, and what we would have termed as bitterness. These are all states, emotional states that are connected to cancer. That is the energy or in an emotional state that actually gets anchored into the body and formulates cancer. Now, somebody can say, well, how can cancer start from the emotional body? Well, it does. So what we're really liking that any manifestation has its root. That is why we're moving out of what we call the world of parts and looking at holistic health. And holistic health means we look at mind, body, and spirit. We just looked at what we call emotional well-being. Now, there's many areas which we shall expand on in future presentations around emotions, but we want to look at really the fact that your emotional center at least wants to be in a state of balance, wants to be in a state of ease, wants to be in a state where it is able to actually function without having what we call emotional balance. When we bring things closer, we want to also realize that in many cases, if one is going through emotional imbalances, sometimes one does not recognize them themselves. They are things that like we can't see the back of our head. So we have to realize that at this particular stage, we're bringing forward what we call emotional awareness. But inside of us, inside of every human being, inside this area, there is what we call an inner child. That inner child is about 7 years old, and it is one of the sub-personalities that connects back with you and is constantly in charge of that emotional body. So sometimes the inner child is hurt, sometimes the inner child is going through different challenges in terms of literally past experiences. I've actually been able to actually help some clients along the way who had what we call unresolved childhood issues that actually were leading to cancer as an adult. And you may find that strange, but that is really sometimes can happen and does happen to some people who have something happen in their childhood, something unpleasant, and literally it ends up plaguing them in their adult and also creating cancer in their system. So moving out of the emotional well-being, we also want to really look at spiritual wellness, because in holistic health, we also realize that if we're going to begin to really look at holistic health, we have to really go back to the old adage, which our great ancestors said to us: know thyself. Because they knew that it is through knowing ourselves that we can begin the journey of creating a sense of Ma'at. Now, today, what we're seeing is that this goddess Ma'at is literally the essence of Ma'at, is what really provides us with what we call the essence of balance, inner awareness, inner clarity. Now, many times when we look at our great ancestors who lived along the Nile, we also realize that they left us great wisdom, but in that they were also trying to awaken us to the spiritual essence of who we are. That is why they left us the essence of know thyself, because they realized that through knowing ourselves, we were able to actually now bring about a sense of transformation of our reality, our environment. And why we are looking at holistic health, spiritual wellness also means that we also find a way of meditating. Because again, there's so many studies that show the benefits of meditation to physical wellness, to heart wellness, to many things around the body. So meditation is something that also helps us along our journey. Many times we realize that as people of African origin, we also have what we call a state where we are also connected to a cultural setting. So there are rites of passage. Sometimes if these rites of passage are not performed, or we can also end up with spiritual imbalances that are connected way back to our ancestors, also creating physical imbalances that start to interfere with our sense of wellness in a physical body. So certain aspects of cultural background or cultural traditions are utilized by our great forefathers who have left down this legacy of traditions over the different African plains. We are also realizing today that many times, as we look at holistic health, and this is just a little summary of everything I've summarized there for you, holistic health also begins with the power of us beginning to remember that everything is about us taking our power back. And when I say taking our power back, because your power is actually in your hands. And when we talk about your power being in your hands, we also remember that nothing is more powerful than a moment whose time has come. This whole journey that we're on at this moment as human beings begins with us taking stock of the why. Okay, and I use the word the why because many times we have been continuously taken out of our sense of center, and we have been taken into a space where we actually are taking time to really understand that this whole journey begins with us looking within. Okay, and why do I say looking within? Because many times we have to really take stock of what we call the healing power of super antioxidants. Now, you call the word super antioxidants because we're living in a time where nutrition is going to play such a key role in balancing and optimizing our immune system. And we're seeing today that in the world we live in, every person who is actually looking at what we call holistic health or holistic wellness, we're realizing that super antioxidants are going to play the key role in restoring balance in the body. Today we are seeing that we are living in a time where we are facing what we call silent killers in silent times. AIDS, Ebola, SARS, swine flu, Zika virus, chikungunya, H1N1, and now we have COVID-19. Now, many times when people say, you know what, COVID-19, is this a new virus? How did it come about? Well, how come our immune system is not actually be able to tackle this? But when something has, like a virus like what we're facing today, has been weaponized, has been given what we call a tweak or tweaked, and is no longer what we call part of a natural strain of viruses, then we are entering a part where sometimes even your own immune system does not finds itself helpless because it has been designed to actually defeat or bypass the normal defense mechanism. That is why we're seeing that today people who even we consider healthy and well actually within a short period of time are getting certain symptoms that are actually challenging their system. Now, I talk about silent killers in silent times because it's very important to, as we are in this time, we may have forgotten that even today, people are still facing challenges around diabetes, challenges around high blood pressure, challenges around asthma, challenges around prostate cancer or prostate inflammation, or issues around ulcers or Parkinson's disease. Many conditions are still challenging us in the world that we live in, and yet at the same time, there's only one focus on this particular condition. Now, it goes back to the sense that we have to really also find a way of realizing that each one of us is like a magnet. We are attracting the very essence of our health. We are attracting the very essence of our healing. In fact, the entire body, the reason why we started with holistic health, because the whole body wants to be in equilibrium. The whole of your body wants to be feeling good. It wants to feel ease. It wants to feel relaxed. It wants to feel whole. We come from a state of wholeness. Wholeness is our natural vibration. Today, our compass is actually set to wholeness. And what happens is that when we are in a state where we have symptoms or of imbalance or symptoms of diseases, we actually are exhibiting certain imbalances because of deficiencies and because of imbalances in our environment, or our capacity to actually really begin to adapt to our environment is actually not there. So what I was saying earlier on is that we have to move back into what we call the ancient adage, which is know thyself. And it is through knowing ourselves that we can begin to heal ourselves. Because healing, wellness, well-being is a natural process. We're naturally meant to feel well. In fact, the body is only showing you indicators that something needs to be adjusted if you are unwell. And sometimes the adjustment process can take longer than we needs to. That's why we end up being in a situation where we're living with diabetes, or we're living with cancer, or we're living with high blood pressure, or we're living with conditions that we sometimes don't really know where they came from. So today, when we talk about knowing ourselves, we want to really begin to look at the fact that the Creator, the Most High, has already blessed us with health and well-being. And He has already given us what we call the most powerful system. He gave us a smart body that has the capacity to heal itself. Just like we have smartphones and smart TVs and smart devices, our bodies are so smart that everything that we see outside of ourselves is actually copies from inside of our body, from the computer to the phones. Everything is literally trying to mimic what our body or what our brain is already doing. So this brings us back to the state of what we call melanin consciousness. And I want to start there because this melanin consciousness and super antioxidants both work together. Now, melanin, for those of you who are hearing about melanin for the first time, is literally a pigment. It is something that actually comes as a gift, that actually every human being has a degree of melanin, but the more melanin you have, the more you can actually do and achieve in your consciousness. Now, what we're realizing today is that melanin itself is a pigment that actually stores energy. It actually absorbs energy. And you have cosmic melanin, you have plant melanin, you have animal melanin. Melanin is basically something that enables us to really begin to bring about a sense of really transformation of our physical self. And you find that in many cases, our melanin actually absorbs the cosmic rays, absorbs ultraviolet rays, absorbs all the X-rays, absorbs so much. And you find that this melanin itself is got a lot of capacity to heal and repair the body. And we've also got in our brain 12 centers of melanin that are actually helping us. They're called neuromelanin. Basically, these 12 centers are the ones that actually help us in what they call our cognitive facilities, to help us to have what they call the rapid eye movement, where we can begin to be in communion with our great ancestors. So we are realizing that today, as we move into this time, we are remembering that melanin itself can also become what we call toxic because of what we call the environment it's in, or the food that we may ingesting that does not support it. And you find that today, melanin itself and its melanin consciousness all work together. So we have to find a way of really tapping into that ancient essence of melanin consciousness and super antioxidants. That's what we're going to look at, because everyone has a brain that is actually made up of 10 to 20 billion brain cells. And each one of those brain cells is recording, receiving, storing information, transmitting knowledge. At the same time, we're seeing that melanin itself is so important for what we call activating or inducing what we call the REM sleep, which I was talking about earlier on. And we're also knowing that melanin itself is actually at the heart of knowing ourselves. It is literally like a calibrator. It is how we tune into the universe. The entire universe is actually allowing us to receive and transmit information in a way that allows us to commune with the higher essence of who we are, with the greater bodies of who we are, the higher self, and the bodies, what we call the cosmic bodies that are surrounding us. They all tune into certain frequencies, certain vibrations, and certain energies. And our entire body is an energy structure. So why are we starting with this? Because everything is interconnected, everything is interrelated, everything is intertwined. In fact, we are realizing that there is nowhere anything begins and you end. There is just oneness that permeates every aspect of experience. And we're understanding as we move forward into this area of holistic health and well-being that if we are going to begin to really look at what we call the health truth, we have to begin by actually realizing that the root of all health and wellness begins with the spirit, begins with the soul. And once we understand that old adage of know thyself, that is why in the Bible it tells you, seek first the kingdom and all else will be added unto you. So we've got to find a way that the kingdom of the Most High is within each one of us. And what we're looking at really is, at this particular stage, is the essence of wellness, the essence of health. If that I am presence is in every aspect, in every cell of your being, that means that you have the capacity to use your own DNA to tune in to what I would call the ancestral records that are lying dormant and that they've termed as junk DNA. Now, in today's world, they'll tell you you're only using 10% of your brain. They'll tell you that we don't have enough capacity. Yet today, I can share with you, we are moving into the golden age of healing. We're moving into the golden age of transformation. We're moving into the golden age of self-realization. We are on the verge of what we call a major transformation on our planet. And that is why we're in the process of really realizing that somebody once said the reason why the powers that be are throwing everything at us right now is because of the fact that this whole journey right now is come to a point where the planet is rising in consciousness. The whole of Gaia is raising its frequency to a level where we can begin to see and be part of what we call the sovereignty of our central sun. So we have to remember that if we're going to begin with really health, we have to remember that everything is about health. Yes, the way you think is about health. What you believe is about health. Your emotion, the way you feel, is also about health. And why we would start there? Because your health is in your hands. You are the one who creates your health by the way you think, your perception of yourself, how you see yourself, how you feel about yourself, your self-talk. This is all bringing it back to you. So with that, you can begin to own your health from a point of view where you realize there are no victims or villains. There's only co-creation. There are no accidents or coincidences. There's only synchronicity. You can only transform your world by owning your emotions absolutely without blaming anybody. When we're blaming people for our circumstances, we're losing power. We become powerful when we own our reality. And that's where true health begins. Because if you have got a condition like diabetes or high blood pressure or asthma or cancer, That condition has come about as a result of what we call certain conditions that have led to that result. Now, because we are always producing a result in every moment, most of our power to do with the health is here and now. Everything is happening here and now. That is why we talk about food for thought, because your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts are actually nourishing. That is why it said, man does not live on bread alone. It is through the food that nourishes the mind that allows the mind to expand its consciousness and tune in to the vibration of nature, tune in to the vibration of our environment, tune in to the vibration of your higher self. Tune into the vibration of knowing that the melanin that is in your skin goes into your organs, your liver, your kidney, your pancreas, your heart, all covered in melanin. And what we are looking at right now is a capacity to tune in at this specific time, because we're in a time of transformation. We're in a time where we are actually realizing that the planets are lining up so that we can begin the process of our personal transformation. This is what we call the end of an age. This is what we call the end of a season. We're moving into the deeper recesses of the Aquarian age, where what we call our dormant faculties are going to begin the journey of awakening. This is the awakening time. But as we move into that, we've got to look at the right foods for the brain. The brain needs the right food. We need to feed the brain with walnuts, with lemon juice, green juices, Brazilian nuts, kale, cashews, almonds, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, pumpkin seeds, cacao, avocado. These are all things that are put there really begin, because the more we nourish our brain with good foods for the brain, the more we're realizing the power of nutrition. Your power to nourish yourself is actually in nature. Nature has provided us with everything. In fact, there is nothing that is not in nature that cannot heal the body. In fact, today, even though they say there's no cures for this or there's no treatment for this, you'll always find that everything in Mother Earth has brought us to the area where we can begin the process of really embracing the healing power of nature. Today, we're finding flax seeds are being used in so many arenas because of the fact that they contain a lot of what we call roughage, but also they're very good for the prostate, very good for really enabling the system to really function. It literally cleans out the digestive tract as well. And sesame seeds there that you see have one of the highest levels of copper in the sesame seeds. And copper is such an essential compound in melanin production. In fact, tyrosine, the enzyme, needs copper to produce melanin. Today, we are realizing that the more we realize that in broccoli, for example, now they're making a broccoli pill. But why don't we just take the broccoli itself and actually enjoy broccoli? Because broccoli has the highest level of a compound called chromium. And the chromium is something that is so essential for balancing and for producing insulin in the pancreas. So what I want to bring you back into, that all these things are part of what we call the essence of wholeness. When we're looking at optimum wellness for your immune system, we have to look at the fact that your immune system is literally all over your body. It is repairing, rebuilding, regenerating the body, and also helping you to really protect you from infections like the viruses that we see today, like COVID-19. Now, somebody might say, well, why is it that this condition is sweeping across the way it is? Is it to do with 5G? Is it to do with this? Is it to do with that? Now, we could have many cases where we could point you to, but the truth of the matter is that people are suffering from something that is making them unwell. And at the same time, we have to find out what this is, and also find out how to begin to solve it nutritionally, but also to provide our immune system, which is the number one defense for the body. One of the things we're seeing, like I said, Aaron, your body's constantly repairing itself. Today, we're seeing that the spare parts required to repair the body are diminished. Today, we're seeing that many people are undernourished, even though they're eating good. And I use the word undernourished, and I'll tell you why I mean by that. Because we find that today, the way that food is grown is actually in a way where we are realizing the food is actually grown with artificial fertilizers. Some of our food is grown in such a way that they don't practice crop rotation. Another way some of our food is also sprayed a lot of pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. Today we're seeing that a lot of our food is also compromised with the fact that there is now more and more genetically modified compounds being added to our foods. Genes from tomatoes put into to cabbage, and genes from fish put into different things, species. So we're seeing a crossing of the species in labs where they're now making seeds that have got inbuilt pesticides. Now, what does it mean? The pest will not eat the seed, the crop, but the pesticide grows in the crop, and we eat the crop or the fruit from that crop. So a lot of our food is actually picked raw. So that is where the creators put most of the process of empowering our bodies comes from the sun ripening process that the plants and the fruits go through. But if our food is picked raw, and our mangoes are picked raw, and the pineapples are picked raw, and a lot of the things are picked raw that we see in our supermarkets, and they're put in huge centers where they're sprayed with ethylene gas so they can efficiently ripen. Sometimes they bring them to the supermarket and they're just about raw. You have to wait for them to ripen again. So the essence of nutrition is diminished. I'm sure many of us have gone to places where we're in the tropics, and we find that when we eat fresh fruits in the tropics, it tastes different. It has a different taste and is more nourishing, and we feel more of a nourishing aspect from that food. Why? Because we are missing out on what we call the sun ripening process. Today, we are seeing that in the world we're living in, everything is about health consciousness. But the health truth that I'm talking about today, in the age of deception, in the age of disinformation, is the fact that we have been taken out of our sense of self, and we've been given what we call magic bullets. We've been said, it doesn't matter, you can live with diabetes for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter, you can live with high blood pressure for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter, you can just be offered a knee replacement. If you don't have if you've got a problem with your knee and you've been in a lot of pain, we'll offer you a knee replacement. But a lot of these operations and long-term medication, or what I'll call long-term drug dependency, brings about a situation where we move out of what we call our natural cycle. We move out of what we call nature's design, which is literally to use the food as medicine, to use the food as the capacity to repair our system. Now, there are so many vitamins and minerals and herbs and all kinds of amino acids and tissue salts and all kinds of different nutrients that even some we haven't even discovered yet. But yet what we're seeing today is that we have been given what we call a state of what we call a sense where our sense of self is literally taken away from the fact that you are what you eat. And many times we're saying that, as I've said in the past, that you're not just what you eat, but it's what you actually digest and assimilate. So many times we're finding that conditions such as hepatitis, dysentery, cholera, they're becoming commonplace. Now, today we've got a condition that has put an entire stop to the planet. Chikungunya didn't do this. Zika didn't do that. You'd also find Ebola didn't shut down the whole world. AIDS, even at its height, did not shut down the whole world. But what we have today is conditions that are, in a way, bringing us into a space where we have to rethink our health paradigm. We have to rethink, how do we begin to address what I'll call certain things that seem to be pervading our environment. Today, we're also seeing that many times conditions like Alzheimer's or conditions like Parkinson's disease, conditions like dementia. Dementia is killing more people than heart disease, sorry. So dementia is killing more people than heart disease, but at the same time, dementia itself is a condition that is treatable. And it is a condition that, if given the right nutrition, it can be reversed. A lot of conditions can be reversed with correct nutrition. And Professor Ssali, using the Mariandina range, has been able to show such tremendous capacity in terms of the healing power of the body. In fact, the Mariandina is not even doing the healing, it is only providing the spare parts, because inside your body is already what we call an inbuilt mechanism that is designed to do what it was designed to do, which is to heal the body. It's just that in many cases, we've deprived it of the spare parts. In many cases, we have kept it in such a state that it is no longer able to respond, or the melanin has become so toxic that it cannot actually do what it was designed to do, which is repair the system. In fact, in many cases, we're not drinking enough water, so the body cannot get rid of toxins. In many cases, we find that a lot of what we're considering as a capacity to rest, sometimes we're not sleeping at night. So we're depriving the body of the necessary mechanism that it was designed to actually be in. Now, today, just sharing with you, today we are seeing a rise in what we call brain diseases. And brain diseases like Alzheimer's, like dementia, like Parkinson's are rising in people sometimes have started with what they call memory lapses or memory loss, but this as an aging condition starts to affect our speech, it starts to create memory impairment. But also scientists today are finding that there's a protein called beta amyloid, which leads to nerve cell death and causes deficits in our neurotransmitters. Now, I put there some turmeric because what we're seeing is that turmeric has the ability to actually enable the macrophages in the patients to get rid of this brain plaque. That is why up and down the world, everybody is now moving towards turmeric. And some people are juicing fresh turmeric, other people are having turmeric powder or turmeric capsules. So we're now moving to the understanding that our environment, which has been now the cause of the rise of these brain diseases, today we're seeing that aluminium, which is one of the worst offenders, if you're still using aluminium foil, think again, because aluminium is toxic to the body. If you're still using aluminium pots, think again, because those pots could be adding to your ill health. If you're still using what we call a lot of fizzy drinks in aluminium cans, in fact, a lot of what we produce as a humanity is based in aluminium. And it's only until recently that people are realizing that this aluminium is actually not good for our brain. It's not good for what it is, causing a cumulative effect in the brain, leading to what we call these brain diseases. But also what we're seeing that in the past 25 years, brain diseases have also increased by up to 300% in countries, in developing countries. So we are seeing that where this artificial sweetener called aspartame has been introduced, that is where we're seeing the rise. And we know that aspartame, if you're hearing about aspartame for the first time, aspartame is a chemical that is 200 times sweeter than sugar. That they put in a lot of sugar-free drinks, sugar-free ice cream, sugar-free chewing gum. You find that they put aspartame in there. In fact, aspartame actually precipitates diabetes. So if you ever get no diabetes at all and you start drinking sugar-free drinks with aspartame, it will start to damage the cells of the pancreas that produce insulin, and eventually your capacity to produce insulin will be diminished just because of aspartame. Yet now most of our children are now being promoted what they call sugar-free drinks, and a lot of what we call dietitians are now offering patients what we call diet drinks as a way of really controlling certain conditions. Also, at the same time, you're finding a lot of diabetics are being given these Splenda and Sweet and Low and Equal, yet these sweeteners contain aspartame. So this is something that we've got to be aware of as we move into a time of really looking at the health truth. The health truth in the age of deception and the age of disinformation. Today, many times we've been told what we call the wrong information. Why? Because there's certain parties that stand to gain from the deception. For example, there was a book that was written by somebody called Leonard Horowitz. And Leonard Horowitz wrote a book, and he was sharing with us the very capacity of the fact that our systems actually are strong enough to defend themselves. But when he brought this book called Emerging Viruses, AIDS, and Ebola, the reason why I'm showing you this book, it's the book my dad had, and he was talking about really what I would call emerging viruses. Today, AIDS was a condition that ravaged the entire world because of what we call a lowered immune system. That's why they call it acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Ebola was another condition that affected different parts of Africa, and literally there was a movie called Outbreak that was made on Ebola. And yet today we also have another viral movie called pandemic that was made, also the plague. There's so many movies that have been made about viruses, but also there's another one called Mission Impossible, which was talking about Chimera, which again was another virus that was being transported in the human body. So, and what I encourage you to look at is the work of this gentleman called Leonard Horowitz. Again, these are leading doctors in the field of what they call healing. I know you can't say that properly, but the gentleman's name is Leonard Horowitz, and he has actually written this book called Emerging Viruses, AIDS, and Ebola. If you look inside this book, why I'm going back into this book, because he, in this book, reveals a lot of what we call the myths of what has been termed as biological warfare in relation to what we call viruses and things like that. He talks about the fact that a lot of what the research was done also proved that the viruses in monkeys had been altered. There was a virus in the monkey called SIV40, and this was actually the vaccines contain similar. They contain kidney cells from these kidney tissues from these cells of monkeys are used in the very making the virus. And he's saying that the SIV40, which is a virus in monkeys, was actually transformed to what? To HIV-40, excuse me. So we are in a state where we are realizing that everything that we want to do at this stage is about also taking time to really look at how to move forward in our health and well-being. Excuse me. I want to share something with you. This is more of something that has been put together for you to listen. I want you just to get an idea of what Professor Ssali was talking about at the time. Let me just play this for you. Now, we're in a time where we also have to remember one thing, is that everything begins with yourself moving into a space of realizing that stress also can be a major contributing factor to ill health. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we go any further, I just want to play something for you so that you can actually begin the journey of looking at what exactly Professor Ssali went through.
You're not screaming, brother.
Sorry? Can you hear that? Sorry?
For the benefit of listeners who didn't catch you the first time around, can you give a brief introduction of yourself, what you do, your qualification, where you got qualified, and what part of the African world you're from?
My name is
Sorry?
Ssali Charles. I'm a professor at Makerere University in Uganda.
Share that.
And I am a Ugandan.
Because we can't.
Doctor in Makerere University.
We can't see it.
Later on, I came to the United Kingdom where I did postgraduate training in surgery. I became a specialist surgeon in ear, nose, and throat, and a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. I later on went back to Uganda where I worked in the government. And
I can hear you. Can you hear the recording?
Ear, nose, and throat.
Yeah. Oh, it's a
recording.
Yes, it's a recording.
In 1974. I became a professor in the University Medical School in Uganda, Kampala. I was in charge of training doctors and treating people with various problems relating to ears, nose, and throat. As a result of this, I did research in that field and I published 3 main papers in which I elaborated on new treatments for diseases like croup. Croup is laryngotracheobronchitis, and another condition called scleroma, and a third one called atrophic rhinitis. Now, these three conditions were badly treated and were not getting cured whenever treatment was given. So, as a result of my work and research, and I published papers, the treatments I discovered are still being used up to now, and they are now considered standard treatment in Britain, Europe, and America, apart from Africa. Later on, I resigned from Makerere University. I came to the United Kingdom and worked here for about 12 years. That's where I started doing the research that was to lead to the discovery of Mariandina nutritional supplement that treats various conditions, and is now in its 10th year after development.
Okay, what's the latest on the AIDS epidemic at the moment?
African people, as regards AIDS, are at a crossroads because they are being persuaded by the pharmaceutical companies and governments in the West to use products that means AZT, triple therapy, protease inhibitors, 3TC, nevirapine, and things of that nature.
Any of these things working?
Obviously, they become more toxic and more dangerous for the patient because they don't build the immune system. So anything which doesn't build the immune system or restore or repair it cannot treat AIDS successfully because AIDS is immune suppression. And what kills people in AIDS is the infection we call opportunistic infection. Opportunistic infections come to a person because the immunity is down. So the AZT and all these nevirapines do not promote immunity. They destroy the immunity. They destroy DNA. They break down the immune system, and the person is left almost naked as far as defense is concerned. And that's why it has been a puzzle for the African countries. And they have not even treated one single patient successfully to cure him of AIDS.
There was a time when Thabo Mbeki of South Africa made a claim that most of the cases that they call AIDS today in Africa are not necessarily there because of the HIV virus, but rather because of malnutrition. Does the type of food we eat or lack of nutritional food weaken your immune system?
It does. There are many people who have got what could look like AIDS, but in fact it's malnutrition. But it doesn't mean there's no AIDS. AIDS is there, and AIDS exploits malnutrition. So those people who are not properly nourished are the ones who easily get infected with HIV that brings AIDS. Now, there are people who have gone to the extreme of saying there's no AIDS, it's just malnutrition. Now, that is the other extreme. We have had malnutrition for a longer time than AIDS. So people were not dying the way they are dying now. And you can't say there has not been any change. I remember being in a conference in Barcelona when some scientists from Germany, from Sweden, and the other countries, they were talking of having a world without AIDS just because they were preaching the absence of HIV in the world. They said there's no HIV virus, so whatever is killing people is malnutrition. That was an extreme. I tried to tell them that I had been a doctor and working in Africa for a long time. I knew what malnutrition was, and I could see the difference between AIDS and malnutrition. Malnutrition doesn't wipe out whole families in a country like Uganda, but AIDS can do it. You see, you can find a child dying of it, the parent, the mother, the father, and the brothers, even if they are well nourished, they have money. So those can't be dying of malnutrition. See, this is the wrong attitude of some of these imported doctors or people who just tour Africa and have a quick look at the whereabouts of AIDS sufferers. And because they look like malnourished people, they say, oh, that is malnutrition. And just because they have TB as part of the infection, Then they say that's TB. They say another one is died of malaria. So there's nobody who dies of AIDS.
If it's something that wipes out in a whole family, I mean, how does the family get it?
Yeah, they get it by the parents sometimes getting infected by someone carrying the disease, because this disease is capable of infecting another one. It's a gene that is transmittable. You see, if you place a gene on the skin, it can penetrate your skin and enter into the genetic makeup of your blood and start to be transferred. So that's why you can transfer it by injection, by use of
How come African people have a much more larger population with HIV compared to other places?
because they have been targeted. The African people have been targeted by the people who invented the virus. There's a lot of evidence that the virus was invented and they deliberately transmitted to the African continent. Now, starting way back, there was this theory that the AIDS virus came because the African ate green monkey. You've heard about that. Now, that is, of course, a deception. It's rubbish. I call it rubbish because we have lived with the monkeys, and some tribes in Africa have been eating monkeys for thousands of years. How come they never got AIDS before? Why did it spring up suddenly in 1980 or 79? You see that? Now, you can't say there was AIDS, people were eating a monkey all the time. If them in Congo or Cameroon, they should have been getting AIDS. Two, if AIDS was, say, sprung up from Africa because somebody ate a green monkey, how come that the AIDS came at the same time in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, in Uganda, Rwanda, Congo, all simultaneously, like 1980, 81, 82? Why should it come? Did somebody coming from Congo who ate the monkey go to Zimbabwe and started having girlfriends there?
Would that have been due to, say, immigration?
Immigration couldn't have been simultaneous. Nobody is simultaneous. They migrate to so many countries. And he has eaten the green monkey and he suddenly goes. Now, by the way, we worked out a computer model in Sweden that fed in the information how the epidemiology could be explained in AIDS, the way it is spreading. The computer, if in order for AIDS to spread the way it has done in the last 22 years, a person who spread it having eaten a green monkey and got infected would have had very many partners. The computer gave out 15,000 partners a year.
Are Africans that promiscuous?
Of course not.
I mean, are we more promiscuous than Europeans? Because I mean, I'm just trying to, understand, how we seem to have a much more higher proportion of this, epidemic that is scared of our people, both on the continent, in America, in the Caribbean, and even in Britain. And other people around us don't seem to, get, the disease as much as us.
It's not about promiscuity, but this is stereotyping the Africans to explain how they catch the disease. The white people are more promiscuous. If you are to assess abortion as an indicator of promiscuity, the number of abortions that you see carried out in Britain or America among the white people is far and far greater than what you find in Africa or in black societies in those countries of Britain and America.
Now, people might say that it might have to do with the fact that some of abortions carried out in those countries are not properly recorded.
No, but in Britain and America, don't they record those? You see, you still find them more among the white people than among the blacks. So the black people are dying still more among the countries of the West.
Yes, I just wanted to really begin to say that was Professor Ssali sharing his work and some of the research he went into in terms of looking at aspects of wellness. As you know, he did a lot of research into HIV/AIDS. He managed to meet Dr. Felder and many other doctors like Dr. Jack Nicholson where he was able to treat Gulf War syndrome patients, again using the same principles of health and wellness. Those clips are some of the clips that were sharing what his findings were and why is it that today, even as the world is caught up in this COVID-19 pandemic, we are seeing that there is nothing new under the sun. Okay, and I hope you can see where I'm coming from. Is that everything is actually a repeat of something else, and it means that at this stage in our experience on this planet at this time, AIDS, Ebola, Zika, chikungunya, H1N1, SARS or MERS, whatever they call it, the Zika, they're all literally what we call guided in such a way that they're part of what we call the campaign that is about really finding ways of defeating the human immune system. And this means that we have to be very careful about how we understand what's really, really going on, because that means that everything comes into our awareness just by the fact that we have now the opportunity to really begin to get ourselves aware of where things are. We talked about the origins of AIDS from that book by Leonard Horowitz, but I just want to share with you, because as we move into holistic health, we also have to look at the fact that there are certain conditions that are ravaging different parts of the world, causing young children to be in a state like that. And Terry, can you see my screen at the moment? So
press share.
Sorry?
Press the share button on the bottom.
Okay, let me just go into that. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Yes, this is the Health Truth by myself, Stephen Ssali. We are talking about the health truth in the age of deception and the age of transformation. In today's world, we have an opportunity right now to really begin the process of understanding something that is very, very important for us to look into, about really taking.
Oh, people, he'll be back. He just pulled himself out. He pressed the wrong button.
Listen,
So,
people, he's been dropping some real information today.
1 second though.
Killing.
Just want to talk about the future events that are coming up from Monday. From Wednesday, we will have Kaba. Thursday, you have Total Exposure, music once again. You know, live acts performing, DJ playing his music, talking about different types of topics. And then on Friday, we have the Manhood Academy. And then on Sunday, we're going to have the women's coming together again. But we're going to be coming all the way from Atlanta. So we have someone special from Atlanta who's going to be doing her thing, talking about the sacred womb. So watch out for that on Sunday, 5 p.m. So yes, Richie, what was you saying now?
Yeah, I was also going to remind people, everybody who subscribes and shares, check that you've hit your bell button so you get the indicator when we go live, because of lately we've been experiencing some technicals where people aren't getting the alert. So again, check your subscribe button, check your alert button. Our brother's back on now.
Sorry.
That's all good, brother. It happens.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So
I just
When you're ready,
how long
the share screen. Go to the share screen at the bottom.
I've got that.
You see the camera? Click on the share screen.
I've got that. Okay. Yeah, just wanted to take you back into this area of really the fact that some of the things that we're seeing today is literally the fact that this condition called Ebola was something that was ravaging parts of Central Africa and also West Africa. Was it a secret biological? Was it nature or man-made? Now, when we talk about the health, we are realizing that there's a lot of what we call secret, covert government projects like MK Naomi or MK Ultra or Carl Temporal. Some of us are familiar with this, some of that doesn't know, but some of these government projects are also part of what we call Henry Kissinger's method of making what we call the foreign policy of the USA, which made the National Security Study Memorandum, which appeared in the bulletin number 47 of the WHO. And it states that the United States will be totally reliant on what we call the resources of what we call from the third world. And so this was, depopulation was going to become the number one program of foreign policy. So we're seeing that, even as I take you through this, why I'm saying there's nothing new under the sun is just sometimes an expanded program of certain things that are happening in different parts of the continent. But today, we told everyone that things started in a bat and they went into this animal, they went into that animal, then they affected into humans. Now, all this is what we call the transmission of conditions, of viral conditions. This is something from the CDC website. But also we're seeing that by the time something gets to jump species, it takes many, many years before something can actually do that. But we're seeing that fact that today, if they are using what we call in the vaccines, they're using primary monkey kidney cells to produce live polioviruses, and they're using what we call dog and duck kidney cells are used to make rubella vaccines. So after doing this, the animals are released in the world. But what I wanted to share with you here is also the fact that a lot of these conditions that we're seeing are actually being tweaked and tested in laboratories. For example, now mosquitoes are being made to actually be infectious to be in a state where they're actually creating more than what they were designed to do. But what we're looking at here, I just want to read you something that is from, it gives you an example of what I would call secret warfare on the populace. And this just gives you an idea of where we are in terms of really what we're talking about. We are actually talking about the health truth in the age of deception and the age of disinformation. Today, we are seeing that a lot of what has been, and this is something that you can look into, and I'm just going to share it here with you. It says, this is from the CDC website. It says, the Virus Special Pathogens Branch, VSPB charter, is the study of highly infectious viruses, many of which cause hemorrhagic manifestations in humans. Our daily work involves the investigation of viruses, Ebola virus, Marburg virus, Lassa virus, Rift Valley virus, Crimean Congo hemorrhagic virus, rhinovirus, hantavirus, and literally what we're looking at here is that a lot of what I'm trying to share with you is that we're in a situation where everything that we have to look at also begins with us understanding that things have a root, and we have to go back into the fact that a lot of these, sometimes we had something in the past called mad cow's disease or avian flu, and these sometimes have been termed, basically Ebola was a river that was in West Africa, sorry, in the Congo, that they used to, because of the name, they called it Ebola. So a lot of these things are being named that way. But what we want to really bring into focus is the fact that now the whole world is being compelled to look at the vaccine industry as the savior of what is going on in our current environment. Yet at the same time, there is a lot of question about the safety of vaccines. And today, like I said earlier on, is that in the Strucker Memorandum, we see that the Department of Defense provided a contract in 1970 for $10 million for the development of a synthetic biological agent with no natural immunity. Imagine that, $10 million was given, and this was repeated in the Strucker Memorandum. You can look this up for yourself. These are open documents. The WHO was funding several programs designed to evaluate the specific disease vulnerabilities of minority groups, from American Indians to African natives, through the collection of a gene pool and blood supplies. And the smallpox eradication program used vaccines made from antiseria, made largely in the United States and given for free to African countries, including Kenya, Ethiopia, Guinea, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, why we're going through these things? Because we're seeing that a lot of people, institutions which are not even really connected to what we call, we are seeing that biological weapons testing centers, like one of the biggest ones is Fort Detrick, and I just put some information there for you that it cost them the cost of running Fort Detrick was reported at $21 million in 1969. Now, Fort Detrick is literally one of the leading biological weapons centers in the world. And today they are actually behind a lot of the investigation. And also, I know they may be saying that they're doing it for defense purposes, but at the same time, we are seeing that a lot of these programs that are actually now becoming more evident as turn into what we call population programs or depopulation programs. They're pushing us into the awareness that the World Bank and the people like the USAID and UNFPA, they're all involved in funding a huge population campaign that is about depopulation of the whole world. Now, when we see that many times some of these campaigns are targeting people of African origin in such a way that they are innocently thinking that they're being saved by different vaccination programs and different family planning programs and all kinds of things, but we're ending up in a situation where we are unable to actually now understand what is it that they bring in these conditions, because now the issue of tropical diseases bulletin number 4 bulletin October 1977 described isolation and characterization of the Marburg virus from the blood of Zairian patient who became ill during a large outbreak of hemorrhagic fever in northern Zaire and southern Sudan in 1976. The tropical disease bulletins also said that Marburg, Ebola Zaire, and Ebola Sudan were morphologically indistinguishable. So a lot of these things are literally, like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. And today we're seeing shipments from Uganda and many other to USA, to Italy, to Japan, to Sweden, to Switzerland, and these are mainly monkeys that are taken for research purposes. Again, I mentioned earlier on that within the monkeys you find SIV40, which is a virus that is in monkeys, a simian virus. But now you find that after tweaking and putting certain things in the vaccine, is now caused HIV, human immunity virus, which is actually now largely in the sub-Saharan area. There's a book called The Hot Zone, which again was written again by Richard Preston, again telling us a lot more evidence about these undercover projects and undercover programs. And in his book, The Hot Zone, Preston wrote, the virus, Preston wrote, erupted simultaneously in 55 villages surrounding the hospital. This, of course, would have been virtually impossible without the help of a mass vaccination or dissemination programs. Despite evidence that Ebola can spread through the air, aerolized spread could not reconcile large simultaneous outbreaks. First, it killed people who received the injections, then it moved through the family members. So these books I'm sharing with you are things that you can go into deeper search. Now, you cannot complete what I would call the program of understanding this virus and its root cause, and especially COVID and everything in one sitting. But one thing we want to look at, and I'm sure there's many people who've talked about it, I just wanted to give us what we call a brief background of other emerging viruses that are literally still on the scene and now and again erupt and also cause and still causing deaths around the world. But today we're seeing that now we are in a state of emergency where entire aspects of our existence have been put on hold. So we have to go back to nature. And why I'm saying that is because what Professor Ssali has done with just the Mariandina range, he's managed to treat over 18,000 patients within a period of 5 years with an 80% success rate. Now, and we know what we're saying today is that we have to really begin the process of understanding, why do we get ill? What causes disease? Why is it that in today's world we are seeing an eruption of a condition like COVID that seems to be in a space where it is not allowing us to begin to live our lives normally? And they're saying now that unless there is a mass vaccination campaign to vaccinate the whole world, that the world will not return back to the sense of normality. But also we are seeing that in the world that we're living in, we have to also look at nutritional solutions that can help us on our journey. That's why I want to take us back into a space where we can look at some things that can help us to make sense of what is going on. Today, we're also seeing that our heritage of healing starts from the fact that we are now realizing in many cases that everything begins with your environment. Okay, everything begins with the environment, because one of the things we're seeing today is that if you're living in a stressful environment, that is also contributing to ill health, because stress in itself can actually get stored in different parts of the body. And you can find that stress is now being what we call the number one killer of what we call on the planet, because it actually comes and brings in many conditions. Today, we're also seeing that people get stressed, and stress can actually cause a weakened immune system. It can cause one to have what they call irritability, or you can't relax properly, or you find that organ stress can also bring on different diseases. That's why we have a range of what we call stress-related illnesses. Now, when it comes to really understanding the fact that in the world we live in, the health truth is also in the time we live in, is they're going to share to you that, you know what, it doesn't matter. You can live anyhow. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're all going to have some sort of stress, but it's to find ways of what I was told. Some people have found ways of coping mechanisms, but also the more we realize that stored stress sometimes can build up in the system, causing us to be in a space where we start to actually create secondary conditions. Now, one thing I want to say is that stress itself always has a root. Sometimes we're not feeling supported. Sometimes we've got family stress. Sometimes we've got stress related to the fact that what to do with work. Other times we've got stress that could be related to the fact that you are deficient in certain nutrients. So we have to remember that stress itself can come in many forms, but at the same time, it's how do we deal with the stress? Because in many times, if we let the stress build up in our system, it can cause what we call, what I said, as stress-related conditions through a weakened immune system. Now, in terms of our health truth, we also want to go back to the fact that everything that we want to do at any point in time brings us into a space where we actually have to really look at some stress solutions. And one of the first things I would recommend is really utilizing what we call the power of herbs. There's one herb that is really good at combating stress. It's called passion flower. Okay, when you take passion flower, or sometimes used as passiflora, it actually helps you to really remove stress from the different parts of the body, but also to bring about a sense where your system is able to actually now function normally because of a lower stress level. It's going to talk about some things that affect our human immune system. And this will actually help us in the journey of realizing that even though we talked about different aspects, try to fit in different things from different arenas, but also to give you clarity in the fact that our immune system is our number one defense. And stress is also something that impacts that immune system. And dealing with stress can be one of the ways in which we can heal ourselves. One of the things we can do in terms of stress relief, like I said, is get passion flower. The brand you can utilize with that is called Nature's Answer. Take 20 drops in water, and over a period of 30 days, you can utilize that to reduce stress. Second of all, we can also find ways of actually engaging in massages. A massage is something that can help you to reduce stress in the body by releasing tension, releasing built-up, pent-up stress in the body, but also finding a way of relaxing the muscles. Doing things like yoga, or providing oneself with an environment where one uses certain essential oils, or certain ways of really allowing oneself to really have the ability to say no, because sometimes we don't have the capacity to say no. Sometimes we are wired to say yes. Okay, so even the fact that somebody may say no and feel bad, again, bringing stress or the way we perceive something. So these are little things that we can do to help with stress management. But sometimes it comes to a point where some people have actually resorted to smoking or resorted to alcohol use just to numb the stress. So we are also looking at ways in which we can actually use passion flowers. That from Melanated Goddess, where can we get all of the passion flower is something that is the brand you can use as the best brand of that particular product is called Nature Answer. It's a small bottle, and you just put 20 to 30 drops in a glass of water, and you drink that. within 7 days of doing that, see how your body feels. Okay, your body will feel very calm and very relaxed. But do it for about 30 days. Sometimes you may need it for a bit longer, but it is the best way of managing stored up stress in your system. Okay, and at the same time, thank you for that question, Melanie Goddess. I'm also saying that at the same time, what we've also got to look at is ways in which we can also relieve stress through literally just going and screaming in the middle of a forest or in your room if there's nobody in the house and just letting out just using a punching bag. Sometimes we have to use what they call a punching bag just to release stress. Also, exercise is a good form of really working to release stress out of the body. Many times we are having what they call stored stress because of lifestyle conditions or lifestyle state. So we want to find what we call stress solutions that actually work. And what I've given you there is one of the best ones, which is passion flower, which is very good at relieving stress, but also finding ways of using also sauna or steam rooms. Again, they're ways of finding ways of releasing and taking out pent-up stress out of the system. One of the ways is also having a positive mindset, positive outlook. We can also create a positive mindset by actually using affirmations. And we can use affirmations in a way to heal the body by affirming that I am well, I am strong, I am clear, I am well, I am, so you really bring that state of wellness back into your state of mind by calming the body down and changing how you think about something, because stress begins up here. How we perceive something can actually bring about a stressful situation. Another person may perceive something and not really see it as stressful. So it's very important for us to really find a way of really changing the way we see things, and also allowing ourselves not to make peace with our current environment by making peace with the moment of now that you're in, because all our power is here and now. The more we realize our power is here and now, the more we can actually end up in a situation where we change our now moment to feel better, to feel good within ourselves. Automatically, that by focusing on something that is less stressful, we can actually change up that stress expression. Another thing we need to be aware of is something that is very important into the area of trans fats. Now we're seeing today a lot of what we call trans fats, and people who are already in the nutrition field know that trans fats are found in margarines, in hydrogenated oils, and you find that sometimes we have been put into a scenario where a lot of these trans fats have ended up in our what we call baked goods and cookies and things of that nature. So you find that trans fats are literally also they clog up our arteries. They also end up in a situation where they damage our normal system. So try and aim to stay away from what we call trans fats in any form. Don't eat any form of margarine, because again, a lot of the margarine today is being hydrogenated, and hydrogenated fats actually clog up the arteries and also cause imbalances. A lot of the vegetable oils today actually end up on the shelf, like things like sunflower oil, rapeseed oil. If they've used hydrogenated processes, they want them to actually last a long time on the shelf. That's why they put hydrogen in them. But then that causes a problem in our physical bodies. Talk about high fiber foods as well. I mean, today we are seeing an epidemic of people who are actually suffering from constipation. Okay, I was seeing a client the other day, and she was saying to me, I only go to the toilet every 3 days for a long call. And I was like, I said, you should be going every morning. That's the natural cycle that you're supposed to be in. But what she was finding is that because of her diet and the fact that the set of foods, she was not eating any greens, so her diet had actually moved into a space where she was hardly eating any nourishing high fiber foods. And today we're seeing that colon cancer is the #1 killing cancer today. And also at the same time, the Royal Society of Medicine has actually said that 65 health challenges can be related back to your colon. And we're also seeing that the colon itself is literally, when they rush somebody in the hospital, the first thing they do is give him an enema. The reason why they give him an enema is because they think that somehow these toxins in that area can bring about an imbalance in the whole body. Yes, I'm willing to take any questions that people are able to ask. We are able to take any questions of what we talked about. If there's anything that has been of benefit to you and you want to talk about it, we talk about the essence of really wellness and well-being, but also talk about creating wellness from within. Thank you, Brother Konsu. More love to you, brother. Thank you for all you do at the Manhood Academy. Yeah, bless you. I just wanted to say that the time we're living in is about really bringing ourselves back to the center, back into allowing ourselves to really be in harmony with who we are. We're seeing a holistic approach to emotional wellness, and I want to rise up, Sister Aisha, for everything that you've done. So, Aisha, bless you. Meditate to focus and our breathing. They're very, very important. The more we practice deep breathing and deep inhalation of oxygen, oxygen is so important at this point in time. Spend more time in the park. Go out and really take deep breaths in, because again, you want to really make sure that you're really taking in a lot of prana, chi, to help you to really balance your sense of wellness and well-being. One thing we also want to do is really practice eliminating toxins, and that can be done very easily by doing fasting. And you can actually fast. Fasting is very important, because the more you can practice as a fasting, you're giving the body a rest. The digestive system takes up so much energy in terms of its capacity to really break down our food, which is important for us to have daily energies. But what we need at this stage is really ways in which we can actually have what we call time for the body to rest. Fasting is good. The Lord Goddess, what herbs do you recommend for cleaning our system? Yes, one of the things that is so important is to cleanse the blood. Okay, and I would recommend that we use yellow dock. We use something called neem. We also use burdock root. These are all very powerful cleansing herbs. Within the Mariandina J here, we've got a very powerful product that actually cleanses and also detoxifies the cells of the body. It also cleans the digestive tract and also helps. It's got a lot of nutrients in there that help with what we call expanding the body's capacity to repair and cleanse itself. Usually a lot of problems start in the gut. Now, when we talk about cleansing, melanated goddess, what we're talking about is really the fact that we can clean our blood. And you clean the blood by using neem. Neem is a natural blood purifier. So is things like St. John's wort. These are things you find also in Mariandina A. This is a very good one for also blood cleansing. It's our product, Mariandina A. It's excellent for really helping to really improve the cleansing of the body, but mainly rebuilding the immune system. It also optimizes the body's capacity to heal itself. It optimizes the cleans out the arteries from plaque, and also helps with what we call the system's capacity to really improve coronary function of the heart, and also strengthens the heart muscles, but also improves your system's capacity to heal itself. Now, one of the things we're seeing today, if we're talking about cleansing, we can do blood cleansing, which I've just mentioned, some blood cleansers that are very good, like yellow dock, burdock, and also neem, and also St. John's wort is also a very good blood purifier. One of the other cleanses we can do is what we call a colon cleanse. Now, we have just been sharing with you the colon itself holds a lot of toxins, and a lot of our diseases actually start in the colon. So what we're realizing today is what we can do is really, first of all, drink water. Water is so important. In fact, water helps with what they call lubrication. It helps with what we call elimination of toxins. What it also helps with is what we call improving our transportation of nutrients around the body and detoxification of taking toxins out of the body. Now, what suffers is our kidneys and our liver suffer when we're not taking enough water. Some people are actually not absorbing the water they take in. So you find that when they drink 2 glasses of water, within 30 minutes, they want to rush to the toilet. Now, that means that the water is just rushing out of them. And usually you find that we end up with dry skin and different things around really our system actually losing its capacity to really do what it was designed to because of water shortage. Now, when we find that our lips are dry, or we're finding our skin is dry, we find that this can also impact many areas and bring on many diseases because of the shortage of water. Now, water quality and water purity and water pH are so important. We always want to be in a state where we are maintaining a good pH level. The healthy pH is between 7.2 and 7.4. We don't want to be too alkaline, and we don't want to be too acidic. So we have to have a pH balance. The body lives in balance. So we want to really also bring about the fact that cleansing also involves us using psyllium husks. I'm seeing Brother Konsi here saying, can you give us a few herbal food essentials to keep our home in, to keep, All right, I could hardly read it because the video is flashing. Okay, quick immune system boosted. Now, one of the things we're saying, Brother Konsu, is that what we're talking about in terms of the water is probably the number one thing for the immune system. The immune system needs to be literally have a system that is flowing. Whenever we get blockages or things that toxins building up in our system, it means that our system is not able to do what it was designed to do. The immune system can be compromised by over 90 different things. One of the things that compromises the immune system is deficiency. Okay, what we're seeing today is that a lot of people are having a wide range of deficiencies. If you're lacking zinc, it's going to impact. Zinc is probably one of the most important nutrients for the immune system, and that alone is what the body needs to really have a strong immune system. Beta carotene is also another one that is very important for repair of cells and also preventing infections as well. You're also finding vitamin C. Vitamin C is needed in large doses, especially this time when we're having what we call immune challenges around viruses and all kinds of bacteria. But we have to really focus on ourselves and strengthening the body. You can't just wear a mask all day and wash your hands or everywhere. You have to really look after the inside. The temple is what the Creator has given you to really strengthen the body's immune system. And you do that by having a lot of vitamin C rich foods, things like lemons, lime. Kiwi has the more vitamin C than you find in a lemon. So just by eating more kiwis and more lemon and lime and grapefruit, we can enhance our vitamin C content. But even to add to that, you can also take a vitamin C supplement. In Mariandina A, there's 500 milligrams that Professor put in each tablet there of vitamin C. So you find that just by using vitamin C, which you need at least 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. Now, if you're taking anything close to that, your system is working under par, and it means that the most abundant tissue, which is collagen in your body, cannot actually replicate and repair itself. Vitamin C is so essential to so many processes around the body, and that is why Linus Pauling, who was famous for actually discovering vitamin C, actually shared with us that the reason why sailors went on long journeys and suffered from conditions like scurvy is because they lacked vitamin C, and they found that those who they started now taking fruits and vegetables on board because they realized that this was essential to maintaining good health and preventing scurvy. Now, what is so important here today? I'm saying, Sister Odaya, greetings to you, beloved. I hope you're well. And you're saying, what helps the thyroid?
Steve,
yes, beloved.
I just wanted to talk about the fibroids and the thyroids, because from the thyroids it comes from the neck part when you talk about the CMOS. But yeah, continue.
Okay, I was just sharing with the thyroid is such an important, and I'm so glad Sister Odaya brought this up, because many of us in the Western world are suffering from thyroid problems, and many of them go undiagnosed. The thyroid itself can bring about many conditions. If the thyroid is imbalanced, you can have what they call a situation where you are having what they call a situation where your diabetes can also be related to a thyroid imbalance. Arthritis can also be related to thyroid imbalance. Cancer can also be linked to thyroid imbalance. A situation where one is having excessive weight gain or excessive weight loss can also be linked to the thyroid imbalance. One way it can also affect your libido, can also be linked to your thyroid. You can also have a situation where you're in a situation where you are experiencing brain fog. That's also linked to the thyroid. If you're not sleeping well, that also can be linked back to the thyroid. If you're in a situation where you're having what they call cognitive impairment, your thinking process is not very clear, this can also be linked back to the thyroid. If you're in a situation where you're having dry skin all the time, your skin is very dry, that's can also be linked back to the thyroid. Over 15 different conditions can be linked back to the thyroid. Now, the thyroid is so important for metabolism, and it is so important for really helping our body, because it is the conductor for the whole immune system. In fact, if the thyroid is not working well here, you're finding that some people get a large goiter. So they find that their neck becomes very enlarged because the thyroid starts to become imbalanced, and they develop a very large neck, goiter around the neck. And some people have to have some operation sometimes to cut that goiter away. But what we recommend right now is to use nature's natural remedy, which is literally iodine. We need to be taking in iodine-rich foods to nourish our thyroid. Today, what we're seeing, because in the Western world, we don't actually take in iodine-rich foods. We in the Eastern world, we're more taking a lot of what we call fermented soy, not fermented, but they're taking a lot of iodine-rich foods in the form of sea vegetables, and they take like wakame, they take nori, they take things like all these sea vegetables and like sea moss, as my brother mentioned earlier, Brother Terry. And this also nourishes our thyroid, helps to maintain good balance, because iodine is the essential food for the thyroid. When the thyroid is starved from iodine, it actually now brings in all these symptoms. Now, these symptoms may not be directly linked to the thyroid, but what you find is over a period of time, you find that the thyroid starts to give you indicators, and that means that you've got what they call a deterioration of the thyroid. Some people have had the thyroid removed. I always wonder why they've had the thyroid removed, but that is what the advice they've been given. And I always think that that thyroid could have been saved if we could just have been corrected with corrective procedures from what we call natural remedies. One of the best companies you can use for this is called Good Health Naturally. They produce a compound called nascent iodine. Okay, even if you put a few, like 5 drops at least twice a week, or 10 drops twice a week, it will help you to get some iodine into your system, which will nourish your thyroid. Many times we're going through deficiencies because in Mariandina, Professor Ssali has put iodine in here as well, okay, in its form, and it also helps. That's why you find that people recover from many conditions, because again, Professor thought about a holistic approach around nutrition. He realized one thing, that our systems were going to need nutritional compounds to repair, because our bodies are built from nature. When we go into what we call the chemical world, and when we find ourselves completely embattled by what we call the world of magic bullets, the world of drug dependency, the world of really creating what we call long-term drug dependency, we find that a lot of our people are in a situation where they're moving from pillar to post, going around the revolving doors of the NHS, going from one consultant to the next, never getting any relief. So we are seeing that today that is happening even in the COVID season we're in right now. So what we need to do is empower ourselves with natural remedies that actually work and produce results. And what we're seeing today is that if your thyroid is actually, if you're having a thyroid problem, now nobody straight away knows that they're having a thyroid problem. Usually people start to see certain symptoms of what I'm mentioning there, that you can have what they call symptoms of where even diabetes can be linked to the thyroid. Once you correct the thyroid, the diabetes goes away. And say, my goodness, I've been put on insulin for the rest of my life. I've been put on this for many cases. But somebody asked a question earlier on.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a question because
about action. I mean, that sorry.
Not much time. What I was going to say is for the ladies. I was asking you about fibroids.
Okay, fibroids.
And they don't understand it, especially when it grows very rapidly.
Okay, one thing we've got to really remember as we go through this is that fibroids, if you look at the word fibroids, within there's the word fibers, okay? The womb gets slight tears in the womb. If this is the womb would get slight tears inside the womb. And what happens when you've got a high melanin content, you form keloids, and these keloids start to actually, the body wants to start to repair itself. Like if somebody cuts themselves with the skin, they can easily form a keloid in the top of the skin, but this happens inside the woman's womb, and they get slight tears in that womb. Those tears actually now is the womb trying to repair itself, but also through the expansion and contraction, it leads to what we call fibroids generating from that. Now, what happens is that when you don't have the right spare parts, again, it comes down to spare parts. The body's capacity to repair itself is also diminished. Now, fibroids are also have their root in what they call hormone imbalance. And hormone imbalance, if you're lacking estrogen, if you've got too much estrogen, or if you've got too much progesterone or too little progesterone, if you've got androgens, excess androgens, which are male hormones, or if you've got too much cortisol, too little cortisol, this can also trigger your system to move into a state of producing fibroids. Fibroids are all linked to hormone imbalance. Behind this also the link to fibroids to the emotion of self-hate. Now, this is something that needs a more expansion, but I mean, we said earlier on that every emotional condition or emotional state, should I say, leads to a physical condition. Now, this self-hate did not start with our generation. It has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. That's why we're saying that we call inherited emotions, or now there's a famous therapy called the body code or the emotion code. You can get the book by Bradley Nelson. It tells you how over 180 diseases can be linked back to the emotional body. And just by healing those emotional centers, we can actually now find a way of relief in the fibroids. So what is driving the fibroids? Usually fibroids are driven by the fact that one is actually having one could be in a state where they're eating too much soy, okay? And the soy today is not the soy what our ancestors ate. There are a lot of the soy beans today, or they contain a lot of high phytoestrogens, which now mimic our own hormone secretion. So we find that, especially if a woman is eating too much soy, that can over estrogenize her in terms of producing too much estrogen, creating a situation where the system itself is not able to really function the way. I'll just share something with somebody, just to share what we're talking about, because people can get a visual on this so that we can see what is really going on in terms of this particular area. Because what happens a lot is that we are in a situation where somebody goes through this particular condition, but they don't realize that this condition is treatable. It's something that can be actually brought into a state of well-being just by literally applying what we know to be our nation's ancient ways of being. Today, what we're seeing is that people are having their womb removed. Other people are having the entire ovaries taken away. But what we're seeing today, if we really want to look at this particular situation, we've got to look at where this is coming from and why it's there. And in today's world, a lot of sisters are being forced to say that we're going to remove the womb and there's nothing we can do. But there's a lot that can be done, and there's a lot that we can do just by actually listening to our bodies, because your body has all the essence of healing. Now, I just wanted to share with you, these are some of the symptoms that actually are related to what we're talking about, which is fibroids, okay? And you find that so many of these conditions are actually sometimes medicated, because people have actually been put in a situation where they say to themselves, you know what, there's nothing I can do about this. I've just got to do it the best way I can. I've just got to cope the best way I can. But this can affect men and women. And just to share with you that you find that for men, you find that this, again, is another issue that causes a lot of these conditions, can be also related to men in terms of, somebody was talking about erectile dysfunction. This can also, erosion of libido, can all be related back to hormone imbalance. So for men, we are producing testosterone and DHEA. As men age, our hormone capacity also reduces. That's why we start to suffer what they call, something similar to women called andropause. And this is where you find that men start to develop a lot of these conditions and symptoms, and they start to get different things to compensate. So what we want to do is find ways of rebalancing the hormones. And for women, they will start to lose for women, they will start to lose estrogen. For men and women, as we age, after the age of 40, you'll find that men and women, their hormone wellness will start to diminish. It just happens to every man and woman as we age. But what we do, nature has also afforded us many things that we can do to help us to redress this balance, to bring about a sense of rebalancing. And what Professor Ssali has done is also to create something to help with that called Mariandina B, which helps to balance your hormones. But what is most important is to understand one thing. If a woman has excess androgens, they will start to get like a little beard, or start to get what they call hair on their skin, or they'll find to get a situation where the skin becomes hardened, because again, they're having too much testosterone, which is a male characteristic type. If you have cortisol deficiency, you'll find that your capacity to deal with stress, when you get angry, you stay angry for longer periods of time, and you can't bring your body into a state of balance or ease. And this is because your cortisol is actually deficient. When you get stressed, the body usually squats out adrenaline and squats out cortisol to actually bring the stress levels down. But you find that people can be stressed for days, or they're angry for days because of lower levels of cortisol. Other people have got excess estrogen. Sometimes women get affected by excess estrogen. Again, this can produce other symptoms that we saw earlier on. What is important here is also to see that fibroids, which Brother Terry was bringing up, are common among women of African descent mainly. And these are benign tumors in the uterus. But like I said, the uterus is trying to repair itself. But usually sometimes this also takes place when women sometimes take a long time to become pregnant. So the womb is designed to hold a baby. So when happens is that when it does not have any function for a long time and it starts to create its own fetus-like shape, so that it actually starts to feel in that sense that it is doing what it was designed to do. So there are also situations where we're seeing that people who have fibroids actually now can have a menstrual flow that actually lasts more than 7 days, and this can also cause a situation where it causes abnormal periods, but also heavy bleeding. And you find that sometimes even when they become pregnant, it can actually cause challenges for where the space where the baby is supposed to be is a fibroid there. So a lot of what I'm sharing with you there on the screen is an extreme state of fibroids that are actually outside of the womb as well as inside the womb. And what we've got to remember is that there's a lot of things that we can do. And here is some of the things that can help women with fibroids. These are herbs that actually shrink fibroids. Things like shepherd's purse, witch hazel, white oak bark, horsetail, red clover. They're renowned to actually help to correct and shrink fibroids. In fact, if shepherd's purse is probably the most powerful one in there in terms of shrinking fibroids. If you just boil the shepherd's purse over a period of time of 60 days, it should help with what you do. Somebody's going through a heavy bleeding or severe bleeding due to fibroids, they can use the shepherd's purse, or they can use a combination of all those herbs boiled and drunk, and they can add Mariandina A and J. Mariandina products again have been shown also to shrink the fibroids as well. And also we talked about cleaning the blood and strengthening the uterus. You can use red raspberry, chase tree, black horse. These are all herbs that we are already familiar with in some ways, but also they're helping to really strengthen that area of the uterus. And if you want to eliminate cellular waste, I put there red clover, dandelion root, chaparral, which is also anti-cancer, echinacea for the immune system as well. But golden seed is one of the most expensive herbs. Again, you find it in Mariandina as well. Professor Ssali is trying to include a lot of these herbs in there so that the body can really do what it was designed to do. So you've got over 99 different antioxidants that help to nourish the body and correct the body. Agnes cactus is very famous and can be used to relieve premenstrual and menopausal symptoms. We know about black cohosh, donquai, wild yam. It can be used to help balance the hormones. And if you've got progesterone issues that you're having a progesterone deficiency, these can also be helped along the way. Also, ginseng and licorice have what they call powerful adaptogenic compounds within them that help with hormone balance. Again, Damiana for men is very important. Remember, Dr. Africa, bless his soul, he's actually left us as men. We should be taking more Damiana in our diet, again, to really begin to bring about male hormone health. So saw pimento, we know that for the prostate, it is the prostate's best friend. Today, a lot of African men are suffering from prostate dysfunction. In fact, in Jamaica, Jamaica has the highest level of prostate cancer in the whole world, and Kingston has been termed the prostate cancer capital of the world. And you can ask yourself, why is it in that area that we're having what they call a high prevalence of prostate cancer? And this can all be linked back to the fact that in Jamaica, what has happened is that when they were farming sugarcane, the sugarcane actually has stripped a lot of the soil of a very important nutrient called boron. Now, somebody said, but how could something simple as boron cause a great prevalence of prostate cancer in Jamaica? But yet it is the fact that when you trace back and look at the actual value, if anybody does any studies of soil studies, because this is where everything comes from, the people in Jamaica eating from the land. So whatever they're eating is very low in a compound called boron. And because it's very low in a compound called boron, they now suffer what they call a high deficiency in a prostate nutrient that is so important for prostate health. And that is why we're seeing a great prevalence in terms of prostate dysfunction and prostate cancer and prostate inflammation in Jamaica. Today, we're also seeing that Africana pygidium bark is also another very powerful herb from South Africa. Again, very good for our prostate, very good for nourishing your prostate. One of the things we should also remember is that prostate is something that actually can be affected by stress. And also we need to find ways of doing prostate exercises to help to nourish and exercise our prostate, and also find ways of really helping us to really create a way where we can utilize some of these herbs to help to nourish the male hormone health. But what we also have to remember is that as males, we can also increase our our testosterone by actually taking on a compound called tribulus. Tribulus is a herb, but you can get it in Indian shops. It's one of the highest forms of natural testosterone is found in a herb called tribulus, because it is going to happen to every man. As we age, our testosterone levels will start to go down. Okay, and our capacity to produce testosterone will go down, just like women, their capacity to produce estrogen will start to go down. So this will bring on, whether we like it or not, it brings in a whole host of problems. So we want to look at ways in which we can actually practice good hormone balance, and this is really being aware of hormone disrupting chemicals. A lot of us are using a lot of chemicals in our toiletries, in our household products, in packaging. A lot of us are actually using plastic in everything, plastic in the microwave, plastic in all kinds of things. And the microwave is also another aspect where we haven't talked about, but we know that microwaves actually also disorient and degenerate our food. And over a period of time, we're seeing that in today's world, because of the high levels of plastic that does not disintegrate, we're taking in soft plastic into our water every time we're drinking water from plastic bottles. I know sometimes we can't help it, but the plastic bottles are laid out in warehouses for over 2 years before they get to the supermarket. And the soft plastic melts into the water, and then we drink that. And that causes what we call part of the hormone disruption. That is what they term as phthalates. And we also got to check our bath products for phenol, formaldehyde. These are also cancer-causing products and part of what they call the family of carcinogens. We also got to find ways of really minimizing cling film use and plastic, wrapping things in plastic or wrapping things in foil paper, because again, these are all part of what they call the hormone disrupting family. And one end with this is that many times we're finding that a lot of us have got parasites. 40% of the people in hospital today are there because of parasite issues. 40%. Now, you might say, but parasites, they're everywhere. Yes, they're everywhere. And inside our gut, you find that is where they live, in the large intestine. But it makes, sometimes if you find people have itching themselves, sometimes they leave the intestinal tract and they actually go into what we call the skin, and you find that sometimes you wake up with an itching skin, or sometimes you find that you've got an itching bum. That is really because of what we call parasites that are actually sometimes invisible to the eye because they're so small you need a microscope to see them. So what we need to do is also, the sister was talking about a cleansing. After we can do a blood cleanse, but we can also do a parasite cleanse. And how do we do that? We use something called black walnut and wormwood. This is a compound that actually helps to get rid of parasites. Back in the Caribbean, in Africa, we used to have a washout. So people used to take you for a washout, give you some castor oil, and you'd have a bit of a holiday time with that. But what happens is that we need to go back to cleansing. People deworm the cat, they deworm the dog, they deworm the baby, but they forget to deworm themselves. So each parasite can lay up to 1 million eggs in one day. So these are things that we can't avoid. We all have parasites in fruits and vegetables and everything. Parasites, you can pick them up from anything. So what we want to do is really minimize and put them in a state of control. And we do that using a compound called black walnut and wormwood. And in that way, we can actually control the parasites and actually get them down further. And you can get this as a brand called, again, Nature's Answer. And once you've got that particular compound, you can actually start to actually work in a sense of better. But like I said earlier on, the Royal Society of Medicine has said 65 different health challenges come as a result of toxic colon. And we're seeing that this thick mucus-like substance builds up along the lining of our colon. Many times it's called mucoid plaque, and it stops us from absorbing our food. It stops us from actually assimilating our vitamins and minerals, our food nutrients. And that is why you find that today encrusted fecal matter can end up like this in our stomach, in our large intestine. And you find that before you absorb your food, it has to go through a layer like that. And you find that many times this is where most of the sickness, most of the disease, most of the imbalances in our body, sometimes the acne, or sometimes different parts of the body suffer, or liver spots. So these are all things that can actually come with the fact that the toxicity in the colon is built up to such a level that it is not allowing you to absorb the food and also bring about a state where your system can actually be properly nourished. So it's very important that we actually eat a lot of fiber. One of the highest fiber foods is lentils. Lentils, having 2 to 3 servings of lentils, or even 2 servings a week, is just enough to help us to really improve, because lentils have the highest form of fiber in what we call our food groups. At the same time, using bran, using things like psyllium husks are very good for, they're like an airbrush, the entire system, help to break down. Some people use cascara sagrada, other people use senna. These are all other herbs that actually help with what they call breaking down this sort of fecal matter that lies in our digestive tract. You can also use Mariandina J. It also does something of that nature. It helps to clean the digestive tract, and it might give you a few loose bowels in the first week, but it won't prevent you from going to work or doing whatever you have to do. But it will just clean. It will be cleaning out and washing out and breaking down a lot of what they call the residue that lies along the digestive tract. What we also want to do as well is also, if you have been in a long course of antibiotics, it's very important that you also now look after your gut flora. Many people have actually not got what we call a good microbiome. This is the gut brain. This is where your immune system is also formed. Your immune system has a direct link between the large intestine and the brain. So we've got to form some sort of what they call good gut flora that can actually repopulate after, if you've taken a long course of antibiotics. Even if you haven't taken a long course of antibiotics, it's good to actually make sure you are repopulating your gut flora and helping your gut flora, because that is the only way the Creator has given us to break down our food and assimilate our food. So if you're having gas and feeling bloated all the time, or you find you can't sleep at night, you've got paining stomach, or you find that you find it difficult, you've got a lot of wind, that is also related to either parasite infestation, or you find that sometimes, in most cases, the gut flora is not properly breaking down the food, and sometimes some of the food passes through us undigested. So it's good to find a way of really improving your digestive capacity by actually eating more fiber foods, but also eating more foods that are rich in enzymes, more raw foods, more foods that actually enrich the body, but also empower your system to really bring about a sense of wellness. Now, one of the things we are realizing that we're living in a chemicalized world, and today we are seeing that so many of our systems have been over chemicalized and causing so many diseases. And what we're seeing is today is that many of the diseases that we're facing today are actually related to chemicals. There's over 7,000 chemicals that are used in just food processing. So in the world that we live in, there's over 70,000 chemicals moving around in the air that we breathe, and they're very toxic. That's why even the mayor of London wants to take people out of the city and have an emissions-free zone. Why? Because we're in a situation where we've got to find ways of enhancing our capacity to repair and be chemical-free. But we can't be in a state where our environmental pollutants are now causing cancers and all kinds of diseases. Today, asthma actually is directly linked to the quality of air. So we're seeing that a lot of respiratory illnesses result from the fact that the air that we're breathing is not very pure. Sometimes the air is very stale because we don't open the windows in our house. Sometimes the air is very stale because sometimes people say it's too cold, I don't want to open any windows. Sometimes people have actually not been even out of their house for weeks, just like we are right now. People said it's a lockdown, I've been left in the house for 7 weeks, but we are realizing today, yes, because of the circumstances, but I'm not just sharing with you that we are in an unusual environment in unprecedented times, and now we've got to actually use everything we can to help maintain ourselves in good health and well-being. I was talking about toilets, but there's a lot of processing in foods today. A lot of the foods that we're seeing today have got a lot of bleaches, sweeteners, thickeners, anti-foaming agents, anti-caking agents, alkalizers, hydrolyzers, fumigants, stabilizers, texturizers, and these are things that just literally, and also on top of that, like I said earlier on, they've put genetically modified ingredients, which they have, the genetically modified companies have asked the government in the USA so that they don't have to be on the label. So you won't see them on the label, yet they're part of the ingredient mix. And today, Monsanto and I think Bill Gates are now championing this world of what they call genetically modified foods, where they're having to grow everything that they can in the lab, so that now foods will no longer be grown, they'll be lab produced en masse, just like in the Matrix.
Yeah.
But we're coming to the end, and I just want to close with this. We're talking about health truth is also about eliminating toxins from our physical and emotional bodies, eliminating toxins from our diet, drinking at least 2 liters of water every day, learning to handle emotional turbulence, creating emotional ease rather than emotional disease, embracing and acknowledging yourself. One of the things we have to do is also heal or eliminate toxic relationships. One of the things we want to be is in a state where we can actually bring about a sense where we get away from toxic substances, toxic food, toxic relationships, toxic emotions, because what we want to do is maintain a state where our body is able to feel good and also really begin the process of creating emotional wellness by owning our emotions, practicing the power of accepting what is, integrating yourself and owning your emotion by saying, you know what, I'm not going to blame somebody for what I'm going through. I'm going to own it. I'm going to acknowledge this is what I'm going through, and I'm going to align with my feelings. I'm going to be at one with it, because the emotional body is so powerful. In fact, every moment of the day, we are going up and down these spirals, and we're now realizing the world we're living, the more we stay in states of doubt, of blame, of anger, of hatred, the more our diseases, the more our bodies, because every thought you think, every state you become, your body creates an equivalent chemical that is put into your bloodstream and is put into your nervous system. That is why you find that if you're in a state of blame, hatred, anger, guilt, jealousy, revenge, or powerlessness, you're creating chemicals that the body now duplicates and makes you feel that way. Now, when you raise your frequency to joy, happiness, appreciation, love, passion, and optimism, or happy, you find that your body feels better. There's a sense of inner calm that results from that. So it's not that you never feel angry or worried about anything else, but you just manage to manage your state. And that is really called managing your state of being, because it is a state of being that attracts. And we're realizing that we're living in a world of emotion, but also our brain is a transmitter. We are actually receiving information from the universe and transmitting information. And every thought is a vibration, has a frequency, has resonance. And the universe we live in is listening to everything that we are about. And the universe is like a mirror. I always say the universe is a mirror that is reflecting back to us the consciousness we're holding at any given moment. And we have to now remember that the mirror, instead of fighting with the mirror, change the self that you are, and that will begin to bring about the change that you wish to see. But that is where I'm going to end it. I want to say thank you to Black Eyes TV, and really for everybody who's been part of the program. This has been what we call the process of really looking at aspects of health and wellness, what I would call the area of creating our health truth for ourselves. We're living in a world where, as you chose the word, age of deception and age of disinformation. There is so much disinformation out there. There is so much what we call a situation where we're experiencing a situation where people will go out of their way, see you as an object to make money out of you, and give you things that actually don't work, but literally they'll go away and look at creating some sort of hedge fund because they've now made money from people's demise or dying, so that they can actually. But you know what I'm talking about. We live in a world. We're seeing an example of it right now as we speak, with people like Bill Gates and all these mega institutions really honing in on what we call the depopulation program, which is going to become unavoidable when the vaccines become mandatory. And this is what we're facing today: is a world where those who are bent on what we call control and power are now creating a situation where we are now having to really adjust ourselves and adapt to an environment that is going to be suitable for us in terms of the 21st century. We are now moving into a sense where if you are wanting to do any form of holistic intuitive health consultation, which is something that I do, we can actually look at aspects of energy, frequency, and vibration using intuition. The world has moved away from just using blood markers and what they call if you blood markers or what urine markers or stool markers, and say, oh, I'm going for a urine test, I'm going for a blood test, I'm going for a stool test, or I'm having an MRI scan, a CT scan. Now, diagnosis is now something that can happen remotely. And I was like, how can that happen? How can you diagnose somebody remotely? The most important thing to remember is your body is frequency, your body is energy, your body is vibration. And when you realize that, you open up to the universe of energy and you allow the universe to communicate with you, because intuitively you are connected to everything. Okay, you are part of this universe and you're constantly communicating, transmitting, and receiving information. So every person vibrates, every person resonates. Your liver, your kidney, your pancreas, your heart, everything vibrates and everything resonates. And what we're realizing in today's world is that this can be measured at a distance. And now we're living in a world where you can now find out and diagnose somebody and treat somebody, which I've done over the 10 years I've been doing holistic intuitive healing, helping people literally diagnose things that sometimes they've been around the NHS for 6 months, and there's a lady who had headaches all the time, having severe headaches, wake up to migraines, going to sleep to migraines, couldn't function. And that was her life every day, many, many months. And she said to me, Stephen, I've been everywhere. I just want to find out what is causing my headaches. When I actually did this holistic intuitive healing for her, what I found is that she had a lymphatic blockage. And that lymphatic blockage was actually a lymph node in her facial lymph node that was actually blocked. And when I recommended her to go and get a treatment called lymphatic drainage massage, she was able to actually say, you know what, for the first time, I've not felt a headache in months, you know, and I'm still happy about that because all of us right now have the capacity inside of us to listen to that inner being. There's an inner being inside of you that is aware of everything. And today we want to celebrate that inner being with the health truth. I just want to thank Black Eyes TV once again and all those who have been part of the program. My name is Stephen Ssali. We produce a range of products called Mariandina, which boosts the immune system, give you energy, repair body cells and tissues. This Mariandina here, what it does, it helps to really balance and boost energy. It also has got over 28 nutrients, things that we saw earlier on, like gotu kola, things like ginseng, things like hawthorn berry for the heart. It's got a lot of things like golden seal, many other nutrients in the Mariandina B helping with actually optimizing health and wellness. The J is for detox. A, B, and J can be used together, and the J is mainly for detox and cleansing, but also helps with what we call, it's got a lot of antiviral and anti-cancer nutrients in there that help with actually helping the body to reverse those conditions and also treating many other conditions as well. The A is mainly for boosting the immune system. The immune system, like I said, is the number one component what the body needs to really repair itself. Many times our immune system is compromised because of a lack of good nutrients. And in Mariandina, Professor Ssali has done the research to bring about a holistic platform. If you look at our website, www.mariandina.com, which is
all the information in the box.
In the box, you can look at that. And this product is actually one of our leading products. It is the number one product that actually corrects a lot of things in the body. Just want to first of all send my thanks again to Black Eyes TV, and also I want to do this in memory. They've done this whole program in memory of my beloved mom, who again passed on the 7th of April. Again, we want to celebrate her life and also celebrate her contribution, and also for allowing me to be here. As Terry said to me before I started the program, if it wasn't for your mom, you wouldn't be here, and that's so true. I just want to also celebrate all the mums in the world. We just had Mother's Day, and all the mothers, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to you. If you just had been through Happy Mother's Day, hope you had a wonderful one. And also to all those who have lost a parent, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, a dad, an uncle, an aunt in this period of COVID season, I just want to say our deepest condolences to you and the family. And our hearts and minds are with you at this time. I know we've all had a situation where we can't congregate, we can't really have a good sender for loved ones who passed on, but we want to send them love and remember they have chosen the space of really crossing over, but we are also continuing to celebrate their legacy. So thank you once again. And I also want to remember and dedicate this also program to my father, Professor Ssali, who was the researcher and developer of the Mariandina range, but also who have spent 8 years sharing and learning information from him and working alongside him. And we continue the journey. Mariandina Research Foundation is planning many, many more of these. Do join us with Black Eyes TV on the next session. We will expand into other areas of well-being and share the information. This is about each one teach one, each one heal one. Together we're one. Together we can rise. Together we can lift ourselves and move forward. So thank you once again. And I also want to dedicate to memories of Dr. Layla Africa. We want to rise him up for his wonderful work and the books he's written. Also want to rise up Dr. Sabi as well, one of the great healers of our planet. And also want to rise up also Dagi, who we've lost from Find Your Voice. These are very powerful people in our community, and we seem to be in a state of really now having to find new ways of doing things, because some of the pillars of our community in terms of this area of health and well-being, like even Professor Ssali, have gone, and we have to really find a way of really congregating as a community, as a collective health body. And I talked to a sister today who I met, Sister Menti. If you see her, just say greetings to you. She said that we've got to find a way of coming together as healers, as practitioners, to find a collective, holistic platform so that we can serve the people together. So in the meantime, shalom and hotep.
Hey, people, family, share, like, subscribe. You know, you've had a scorching 2.5 hours.
A lot.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. But you know, tomorrow, as I said once again, we're going to be having Brother Kaba. Thursday, we're doing our music session. We've got 2 big artists coming in on Thursday. And Friday, we've got the Manhood Academy show. And then Sunday, we've got the collective of ISC, the International Sister Circle, which they're going to have someone coming straight from Atlanta doing their thing. So I hope you can share every information that we give you, share it to your family, share it to your cousins and sisters, you name it, you say it. But you know what? Be black, feel black, enjoying being black, and you know that black is number 1.
That's all.
All right. So Reggie,
let me say this to the people as well. Go to Mr. Terry Riggs on Instagram or Mr. Terry Riggs on Facebook, or go to Black Eyes TV on Instagram or our Black Eyes TV page to see the flyers so you can get the heads up on what's coming next. Peace to the family.